Hello everyone, it's another episode of By the Numbers, the quintessential Counter-Strike podcast. I'm your host Richard Lewis, my co-host is Duncan Thorin Shield. Sam presses the buttons. It is 2018 in the year of our Lord, and eSports is still a fucking joke, Duncan. We're going to get into why in just a moment.
Always will be. Don't ever let yourself imagine otherwise.
Man, what is wrong with everyone? I can't even begin to fucking wrap my head around how it's just... I feel like this show has just sort of become, it's almost like a time warp. Like I'm stuck in a fucking loop. I have to catch myself sometimes because I'm saying the same shit. We've been doing this show for years. Why the fuck am I saying the same thing? Like we'll get to it. We'll get to it. How are you? Are you good?
I'm all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I've mentioned this in the past, but because Star Series actually has a pretty good scheduling system, you basically do like half a day if you're analyst. It's one of the only events I've ever done where, I mean, bear in mind, it is a full week. You don't actually come home wrecked. You actually have time to have time off, get sleep, eat food. It's amazing. The life that you can live.
Just imagine, if you actually space out an esports event, say you're not working 12 to 16-hour days consecutively for 5 days to shave costs off, you can actually feel pretty good at the end. I was going to say, considering you just worked an event and traveled, you look pretty refreshed.
Yeah, I'm not bad, actually. Plus, unlike a lot of the other events where they tried doing something similar, this one actually somehow I was just in the right frame of mind where I didn't have like sleep problems or any other issues. No, because I've had them before where the time you have, you just spend like relaxing and trying to de-stress basically. So yeah, it was actually one of the better ones in that respect.
Yeah, and I saw you were absolutely fucking outrageous. Definitely trying to be...
Just enjoying myself.
Yeah, top tier Thorin. I'm trying to think what the particular highlights were while I was watching. Fuck MSL. I thought that was
pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good.
It hit a sentiment that everyone was feeling, at that moment.
Pretty good or completely fucking needless. One of the two. We'll see. But look, we'll get into that. We're going to break down that event, but I thought we'll do the news first so we can get into the whole why I think esports is still a fucking joke. And there's lots going on. I guess we'll start with the NIP stuff. So Ninjas in Pajamas obviously have been kind of, I think the way to describe it is they plateaued, right? Like it's not that they're a bad team by any stretch of the imagination, still in that top tier, still a top 10 team, still having some good performances out of players. Most recently we saw Get Right kind of come back to life a little bit. Obviously Christopher's dealt with a lot of health problems. His continued ability to play is a miracle in and of itself. Forest, the greatest now of all time, if you take all of Counter-Strike as the measurement, eclipses Neo in that regard. But unfortunately, they just don't seem to be able to get to that next level. So they deemed Draken, who is their AWPer, to be sort of surplus to requirements. Now, I know enough about the team to know that if anyone was going to get dropped, it was always realistically going to be Draken. I think he's had some questionable attitude issues in the team, and he's tried to work through that to his credit. But I think some of his teammates, you know how in the past it's been very clear that, like Makalele, for example, another flamboyant, inconsistent AWPer with an attitude where he likes to be hyped and pumped. He couldn't cut it in an IP. Even when they were winning games with him, it was always he was always on borrowed time. And I feel Draken has kind of been in that twilight zone for a while, where they've given him time to sort of develop as a player. He's actually statistically a very good player. He has positive ratings at every event he goes to. What people seem to remember about him is he's one of those players who, unfortunately, their statistics are very good, but you wouldn't think it because of the eye test. And by that, he is a player who is prone to missing, easy AWP shots and whiffing, but making up for it with a spectacular AWP shot. And I'll bring you in at that juncture. I think Draken's been a sort of unfortunate player in that regard. That, again, it's very easy to put a highlight reel together of him missing easy shots, but statistically, he's a very solid player.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I found really baffling because, while yes, you can't by just looking at the game, kind of tell where someone's stats will be because obviously, you catch a good game, you miss the bad game. Absolutely. Like, for example, I remember at the end of this Star Series tournament, like all the games I saw where North was playing, like AZ was like the best player. And I was thinking, fucking hell, has he had like some sort of flashback? I went back and looked. Stats are basically the same as every tournament for the last like year or so. So it can be misleading, but I'm definitely with you on that one. He is so bizarre in as much as I've seen tournaments where when I watched the big playoff games, I was like, this player's fucking dreadful. How was he even in this team? Like he doesn't do any of the basic things I'd want from an AWPer. And at the end of the tournament, I would look and he'd actually have some of the best stats in the tournament. He'd be easily the best NIP player on paper. So I do feel as though, like, I'd love it to be the case that he had some hidden depths that we're just not seeing. Sadly, I just get the feeling that it's one of those. He's a very rare example of where stats can sometimes be entirely misleading. Because I have to say, when I actually looked at him in the game, it does feel as though in all the versions of NIP he's been in, he never really was part of the team, if you know what I mean. It almost feels like he's just a player off on some side doing stuff. And occasionally that means you win a round. Sometimes you just miss. It never felt like he was like they were a coherent lineup ever since he's been in the team for me. Like all those old lineups where it was the NIP Magic, he wasn't really a component of that. And I think it's quite telling, actually, that the only time with the Rez and Drake and like they had a bit of NIP Magic was obviously winning that Auckland event.
Auckland, yeah.
And that was actually the tournament, if you remember, where he didn't do particularly well. That was actually one of his few tournaments where the stats said it wasn't very good. And you remember Forest and you remember Rez and, it was not really him you remember. So unfortunately, with how much time they've given him, I kind of feel like this is fair all around. Like, it sounds like, when he first came into the team, yeah, I've no doubt they did treat him the old NIP way where it's like there's four of us and you're the fifth guy. Good luck, sort of filling those shoes as everyone else has had to do. But if you look after that, I do think they gave him a chance to be a star player. And they did try different things with him and they've tried different coaches. And he's had good tournaments and he's had bad tournaments. But I don't feel as though he ever fit. Like if you think of all the other top AWPers, I've never felt like he fit into what NIP was trying to do. I know they haven't really played with a lot of dominant AWPers. So
I don't think they ever have, really.
No. So I kind of feel like there is a logic to him moving on, not least because I think it might even be one of those mutual scenarios where I think he would actually probably be happier and perhaps even a better player in a different type of team.
Yeah, you might be onto something. It definitely feels that there's sort of maybe some mutual thing going on. Just to sort of wrap up this story before we move on to the next bit, Lecro is obviously the player that's coming in. Now, it seems a very strange change on the surface because obviously you would be inclined to think, well, you've got an AWPer going out, you might want to bring an AWPer in. Certainly that's not like kind of Lecro's modus operandi. I've talked a little bit about how I think he's a fantastic pistol player. They might have one of the strongest pistol squads ever assembled, actually.
Certainly, yeah.
With Dennis in there and obviously Forrest in there and now Lecro. They're going to be an absolute terror in pistol rounds. But I still think this idea that NIP have always strayed from in every iteration of the team about not needing a dominant AWPer that can take over games, I honestly think that's probably one of the reasons why NIP do struggle to kind of win those like big series against the bigger names. And I don't know if Lecro's a player that's kind of like the missing piece, that's going to solve the riddle of why NIP can't get tournament wins right now while having some pretty good runs in tournaments. So I thought it was a little bit strange, but equally I knew Lecro was too good to stay in free agency for very long. I was just surprised it was NIP that picked him up.
What makes the Lecro move bizarre is if you think about NIP in CSGO, they've never had either an amazing in-game leader who controls the whole team and does all the tactics and stuff. They've never had that, or the dominant AWPer who's your star player and he's going to hit the... Like, actually, what's funny is, as you mentioned, the AWPers you think of is you think of Draken and you think of Makalele, and they are like super streaky. They're not clearly like set up to be the main star because they're not consistent. You kind of put them in there. They're a wild card element that sometimes win you a game, sometimes aren't going to show up contrasted to the other great AWPers. Alu as an AWPer obviously didn't even really get focus really, so he never really got a chance to do it. What's bizarre is if you think about it, NIP is their own little world. It's like they have no connection to the rest of Counter-Strike. Feels like they've always had their own style of play. They've definitely had their own notions on how to play the game, which is very weird overall, because in some sense that actually does remind me a bit of how CS 1.6 was, because you had a lot of cores that endured like half a decade, you know. And so, yeah, they had their own vision on the game and who they thought they should recruit and what they thought they should do. And so I do kind of feel like that's why it's a bit depressing, because NIP for me is in like a weird cul-de-sac where I don't know how they get much better than this. Like, it feels like their future, as long as they're going to keep doing these sorts of lineups, is to be a top 10 team, but not the right end of the top 10. And best case scenario would be the odd run. I can't see how they're ever going to be a top team, because when they do this Lecro recruitment, it looks to me like you've got a team full of players who are all the same sort of player, you know. You've basically got like Dennis, Forrest, Lecro, maybe even Rez. These are all players who are like good rifle player, doesn't want to be the main star of the team, will be aggressive, likes to play fairly freestyle Counter-Strike, but there's no in-game leader there. There's no AWPer there. You've got GetRight, who now is a weird sort of exile from that sort of core group. And it's like, it reminds me actually, funnily enough, this is going to be a team that did end up working, of at the end of 1.6, when Khan retired, Fnatic basically did this. What they did is over and over again recruit someone who was sort of like the second star rifler of the team they were in previously. And my joke when they made this team initially was, it's like recruiting like a team full of attacking midfielders and trying to make a football team. Like, it could sort of work if you just was so amazing at what all you all did, but you look at it and you go, that's not really a team though, is it? Now, I will say in that particular instance, bizarrely, it did work at the end of 1.6. They actually won nearly all the tournaments. So fair enough. Maybe that was just an outlier, or I was just wrong on that one. But I don't really know where NIP's going with this one, because it feels like they don't even recruit for role anymore. They just recruit whoever the next best player they can get their hands on is. So I don't know where they're going to go with this lineup. It feels to me like, again, to tie into the example before, sure, if a bunch of them have a good game and they hit their shots, they could do something. But I feel like at the moment, they're a weaker version than all the all-star teams, the Mouse Sports, the FaZe of the world. They're obviously going to have nothing compared to the tactical teams, the Astralis, UG2. So I don't really know where they fall. At this point in time, it feels like they've almost bought into that hype of like, they are just like, it's GetRight and Forrest, and they're going to keep playing, and you're just teammates of theirs. That's it. You know, there's no real direction to the team.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, rather than like recruiting an AWPer, like, this was a great opportunity to finally bring in a designated in-game leader. Didn't happen. And like you say, I mean, there's something of an enigma in the sense that as a team, they don't have an in-game leader, a real in-game leader. They don't have a real AWPer. It is just a collection of kind of support players, lurkers, and aggressive riflers. And I don't know how they make that work. But equally, there's too much talent on the roster to sort of imply they would slip below like 15th in the world. Certainly, they could drop out the top 10, depending on how a few of these other teams we're going to look at do. But anyway, so why are we talking about NIP right at the top of the show? And what was that strange introduction all about? Well, anyway, DK, he's a journalist. We've talked about him numerous times on the show. He's one of the few like sort of investigative journalists we've got left. You know, I don't do it as much anymore. You don't do it as much anymore, if at all. Jacob Wolf's pretty much on the beat with Overwatch and League of Legends. There's not really a sort of... And there's Nell, the French guy, obviously. But again, has a very specific sort of set of sources and a niche field, particularly for the French scene. So we had this reported by DK, which was that, you know, they've dropped Draken, but maybe there's a way back for him on the team, which to me, when I read the report, it made total sense. I feel like trying to implement Lecro into the team is a gamble, and I'd certainly want to hedge my bets with it. I certainly wouldn't want to say we've got a very different style of player who's still under contract. I think it's just good practice whenever you bench a player to say there's a way back for you. Stay motivated, stay fit. We know that there's all these international tournaments that people can't get to because of visa issues. Having a sixth player under contract who brings you something a little bit different is never going to hurt anybody. You know, if you imagine if FaZe, for example, had that. You know, if they still had Keo on the books, for example, wouldn't be having all the problems they're having now, which we'll get to in a bit. But I read this report and I just thought this is fairly fucking innocuous. I mean, straight up, like, I just thought it's not even particularly like an interesting story per se. When you're a journalist, you've got to kind of write things up that just aren't amazing a lot of the time, but it fills the space. It gets the clicks. It keeps your hand in. It's that day's news. It's not always going to be exciting and spectacular. Well, immediately, sort of after putting out that very innocuous, meaningless report, I saw there was a lot of NIP, well, and a few other people in the scene kind of took umbrage with the fucking report, right? In particular, there was Peter, their coach, said something which I thought was really fucking strange and like just needlessly hostile, where he said, what was it? Sources these days, and anything you can talk to your dog and call it a source. Now I'm trying to find the tweet. He's
essentially implying that it's a complete lie, thought up from whole cloth.
Yeah. Which is just ridiculous. So I think he's actually deleted the tweet now because you retweeted it, and it doesn't appear to be there at the moment, where you said this is well above your pay grade. But yeah, basically the implication there is that DK completely made the story up, and there was no way back for Draken,
which is an outrageous allegation to make with nothing to base it on.
Right. So anyway, this kind of made it onto Reddit like it fucking did, and everyone on Reddit. Right. So let me just explain the kind of story you would make up if you were a journalist. I'm probably talking to fucking idiots because I say this all the time. So I don't know. If you're an idiot, just go and do idiot things for fucking 5-10 minutes. Let me talk about something that an idiot will never grasp quite clearly. Just fuck off. Go dribble in a corner for a bit. Let the grown-ups talk about journalism and how it works. What would be the purpose of making up one of the most mundane stories that DK will ever report in his career?
It's a pretty shit story, to be fair.
Yeah. Like it's just something of nothing. What would be the point of making that story
Richard,
up?
if you think about it, it's even worse because it's also, this is why it's the worst story to make up. It's also a story where all the information is in the headline. You don't even need to click and read his report. Like it's a tweet. It's not like a story where it's like new lineup, more details inside. Like his story is like, well, he's just available for offers. Yeah. And they might use him again. That's it.
That is
not even good clickbait.
Right. Now, if you were going to make up a story, if you were going to basically completely violate the tenets of journalism and risk your professional reputation being utterly destroyed, I'd like to think you would do it for something a bit more spectacular. Thorin and MSL in secret love tryst while KNG watches from a cupboard. Something like that, right? That would be worth making up. That would be a story that would generate hundreds of thousands upon clicks, maybe millions. And sure, you might get a potential lawsuit, right? But fuck me. And everybody would know who the fuck you were. Everybody would know the journalist that wrote that story, and people would flock to fucking read it. It would be a moneymaker. It would be a rainmaker. You would have unveiled the first ever sex scandal and bizarre threesome in CSGO history. Oh, that's not true, actually. Wink, wink, Swedish player. So, anyway, right, you would make something like that up, wouldn't you? You would make up, like, literally, this is the equivalent of, like, man wakes up, world still here. Like, it's just so, I'm not criticizing DK on that basis. It's just what you have to do sometimes as a journalist. It's so fucking dull. So I don't even understand what the implication is there. But unfortunately, because players once again took it upon themselves to speak out against this very mundane bit of reporting. By the way, future reference for players, managers, people that want to publicly call out journalists and say you don't have sources and all this bullshit, at least save it for something contentious. Because when you invariably get exposed for the fucking dog shit cunt liars that you are, right? Like, you now have no credibility, Peter, next time a fucking story comes around. And honestly, I get it why you are so agitated about journalists existing, because, maybe if we had a few more, there would have been a bit more digging into that charity bullshit, wouldn't there? Let's not talk about that though, Peter? If I were you, I would wind that fucking neck all the way back into your fucking chest, mate. I would wind it all the fucking way back in, because you are a guy with, like, definitely some fucking skeletons out there, and you're antagonizing investigative journalists over nothing. Absolutely fuck all. It is so stupid and fucking deranged that you would even bother doing it. And now you've just been exposed as an absolute liar, because, of course, what happens is it's a terrible situation for DK to be put in, but DK had to publicly sort of say, well, this is the source. And the source comes from NIP CEO. The actual words out of his mouth there is, we have 3 offers for Draken, but we will be keeping him. He will be back on our active roster. Now, to me, if I had a source that I verified and it was just there in black and white, the CEO saying that, I don't even know if I go for a secondary source. I feel comfortable running that story as long as I verify the Skype log as being genuine. That is basically a primary source. It
would be pretty scandalous if they were fucking with you and lying on that one to try and trick you into doing the story, put it that way.
Yeah. Right? So, complete gibberish to lie about this mundane occurrence. And then, as I said, the person it comes from is a conversation with your CEO, who I'm guessing has probably a bit more to do with the day-to-day than the likes of Peter and anyone else. Anyway, do you think that sort of ends the fucking story? Well, no, because Peter's response now, after having deleted the tweet that makes him look like an abject fucking fool, then just goes, 6 sources, dude. The source is your CEO, you fucking daft cunt. Effectively, unwittingly, right? But that, so either the CEO was lying to somebody else, in which case you can forgive the journalist for publishing the story, which is utterly meaningless within the context of the world in which we exist. Or what you are implying is that a primary source, i.e. from the horse's mouth, which, by the way, when DK reached out for a statement, nobody responded to him again, as is par for the course, which was another allegation that he hadn't even reached out. He always reaches out. It's not a journalist's fault that you are too cheapskate to employ a press liaison officer to man your fucking inbox. It's not on a journalist. If you do not respond to a request for reply on a story, don't cry about how they didn't ask you when they can also demonstrably prove they asked you, which is the second time DK's had to do that, because Virtus.pro did the exact same shit. So I don't even know what the implication is here. It is legitimately the implication now that if you get a Skype log of a CEO saying something, don't run that story, because the CEO might be lying or playing some sort of 5-dimensional Jenga with everyone's minds. Or do journalists just run the story with the information that they have available to hand? I don't know. You tell me, Duncan. What I will say is I will now be adding, as if they weren't already on there, this is an organization that fucking, people just forget NIP's history. They have done some of the shadiest shit in CSGO. Let's just call it for what it is. I don't give a fuck, fanboys. You come at me. All bets are off now. Right? They have done some of the shadiest shit in CSGO. I ain't even just talking about the charity work. I'm talking about when they first went through this transformation and were holding LGB players to fucking hostage, and did they have controlling interests in multiple teams? What's going on? Where's the salary going? Remember when I published that story about the NIP salary and they got rid of that fucking guy, Per Lilyfilth, or whatever the fuck his name was? And they all turned around and were going, "Oh, thanks, Richard. You did a great service to NIP," as if these fuckers didn't know about it. Mate, if people turn over rocks regarding NIP's complete history, the shit you will find will blow your fucking mind. I know it. I can't publish it. I won't publish it. But I urge all journalists now, please, go forth, turn over those fucking rocks. The shit you find will blow your fucking minds. So, again, I think we just had NIP now to the organization of untrustworthy, pathetic, enemies of free reporting scumbags. I'm there. Boom. They're on the list.
Also, I notice you really are damned if you do and damned if you don't if you DK. Because, for example, when he has come out and outed this source. So let's be real. Think about what's happened here. The coach of the team has said he's lying. Someone who's a press person has implied we haven't reached out to us for a statement without even fucking checking the email themselves, like a classic move. Yeah. Players behind the scenes, I know, are not happy about this report. Loads of people on Reddit are implying he is lying. So he comes out and proves every single fucking one of you is wrong. Now, what is the move here? Do you go, you know what, fair play, you got me on that one, I was wrong. No, you double down, and now everyone goes, Yeah, that was 2 days ago, isn't it? A lot can change in 2 days. This is why you're damned if you do. Because if he releases that 2 hours after he asks for comment, they just say, well, you didn't give him time to give you comment. So this fucker's waited 2 days on a story. Then when it comes out, you go, well, it was 2 days ago, wasn't it? So you're admitting it was real now. Second ago, it was complete fiction. Now it's real, but it's just 2 days old. So now you want him to do the journalism in a shoddier fashion to get you his fake news, which you won't believe unless he outs the source earlier, and therefore make it actually plausible it could be incorrect. Like, it shows what an absolute clusterfuck this community is. And then in terms of like players,
it's still probably the best community when it comes to journalism. Is the depressing
still
thing.
One of the better ones, yeah, true.
Yeah.
But the sickest thing about this story is I've seen this play out 1,000,000 times, and every single time it's the same story. It goes like this. A player in a team hasn't heard something, or when he talked to someone, they told him something, because you have this concept called a hierarchy. And there's a little principle you might have heard of called need to know basis. And you know what, Get Right? You don't need to know what Gen IP is going to do with this player's contract. That's actually none of your fucking business, literally. So I don't care if you are unhappy about it. And I don't care if the guy who watches demos and says what he'd like Rez to do this round also has been told something different. Or you know what? Doesn't agree with what he's been told. That is of no fucking consequence to me or anyone investigating a story about this player's contract and what's going to happen with it. It's really, like, here's the thing. It's an interesting opinion. If I heard it, I'd go, oh, it's interesting. Oh, what, there's a discontent in the team or something. But the amount of times that it's just that all the people involved in the story either haven't talked it through and they literally don't know the information the other people know, or they can't understand the concept that we don't treat everyone in our lives as a uniform relationship. I don't say to my mother the same thing I say to a fucking policeman on the street, the same thing I say to you. I would say the same thing in 3 different ways with different amounts of information and truth and whatever. And, you know, there'd be the element of, well, how do I want the person to perceive me? Or, you know, I can also influence the way things go if I say things that aren't necessarily a lie, but are an omission of truth or slightly exaggerated. We do these things all the time. So the maddest detail is whenever I hear stories that come out of like a player source and an owner source and someone who's a friend of the team, what I normally do is this, Richard. I make a collage out of all of it. And I try and find where there's a part that seems like it's mutually exclusive so I can limit it. But generally, I take it all as yes and. Like, it's nearly always, it's part of the puzzle, you know. Yeah. So this guy who's a player, you know what? I'll guarantee the player's probably right. No one has said to him, you know what, actually, we might bring Draken back in 3 months if one of your players like shit. Why would I say that to the player when I've just got the player he wants in to play in his fucking team? That'd be the stupidest move ever as boss. But the problem there is, that's fine for us all to have different information, as long as this player doesn't go, that's a lie, that's not true. I know what's going on in my org at all levels, and that's absolutely false. The problem here is, these people are actually right. Like, you know what, Peter? I'm sure at your level, what you were told was accurate. And you were probably right that if you look at what came out publicly, you're like, that's not what matches up with what I was told. But have a fucking think for a minute about the fact that it could all be true, or it could all be some gradation of truth, or your little worldview and your perspective seems accurate, and this seems inaccurate to that. But again, to tie it back in the beginning, the idea that this is like the fucking hill you're going to die on, and this is where DK is going to blow his entire career, is reporting that a player who as yet has not been transferred to another team might be used again by the team he is contracted to play video games for.
Here's the thing, right? You've heard the phrase, right? You've heard the phrase that politics is show business for ugly people, right? Okay. Well, I've always said esports is politics for stupid people.
I would have thought for cunts, but okay.
I mean, okay. You'll both apply in this instance, because this is where it gets really fucking stupid, this story, right? So after DK has sort of publicly stood by it and said, look, what I've reported is accurate. This is prior to him even sort of releasing, like, it's come from your own fucking CEO.
Oh, by the way, you don't know how many journalists, like, we almost want to beat off when we see him reveal the source, because you know how many fucking times, Richard, like, the org is telling me publicly on Twitter that I'm lying and that I'm wrong. Meanwhile, my source is the player. Like he's the one telling me, no, I'm going tomorrow. Look at my fucking ticket. You know, I'm done. And they're telling the whole way. You think I don't just want to just go, you know what? Screen dump. There we go, motherfucker. How you like me now? But of course I can't do that, can I? And that is the sickest thing, because I'll say this as well. It's not always actually like I presented it there. It's just naivety on their part or them misunderstanding. I will say some of them do it maliciously. Some of them know full well that my source is the player, but they also know that the one thing I will not do is reveal the source. So they're actually safe to fuck with me. Now they're not, because obviously in the future I'll get, you know, it will come around again. They will wake up from have a fucking bag taken off their head, and I'll be the guy behind the trigger. Metaphorically, all metaphorical, of course. Don't even own a gun. Yeah, very famous cliched metaphor there. But you know what I mean? Like in the short term, it is where they can fuck you over, obviously.
Yeah. So I mean, but so this is the part where they tried to do something political, and because of Draken, DK standing by the Draken story, NIP went to a rival publication and just fed them the opposite of what fucking DK had reported. So they went to HLTV and said, turns out we're definitely accepting offers, actually. We always were. There was no chance of him ever staying. If you've read to the contrary, might be lies. And of course, that's kind of hard-hitting journalism that HLTV are all too happy to run all of the time. The kind of nice, easy, the organization feeds me the story. I will absolutely not question any of the information, nor in the report I put up even mention that it's been reported to the contrary. Won't even do that. Won't even tell the reader the full story.
Doesn't even say in this story that you wouldn't know basically that DK exists.
Well, yeah, but equally, I mean, sure, if you don't want to credit another journalist, if that's the world we're living in, fine. Maybe you don't need to credit him for this particular report because you've been fed it by the org. But at least mention there were some reports of contention.
Yes,
right.
Just for context.
Yeah, just for context for the readers. Now we ain't even going to do that. We are basically now publishing press releases for organizations, unquestioningly, unerringly, without any even broader context about them. That's just how we're doing it. So NIP are like, we've got one up on him here. Like, this is just pathetic. It's the most transparent shit I've ever seen, right? And again, like, it's depressing because even Nell has somehow been brought in on this and is like, you know, kind of trying to stand by the whole, well, I got told different, and that was 2 days ago, and a lot can happen in 2 days.
That's disappointing, I have to say, because again, how does he himself not understand the premise that he could have different information and sources, you know? Could all be true, could all be false.
Right. So the point is, right, the journalists can only go on the information that they have at the time. And I believe DK is one of the biggest proponents of saying things change. Every time something's changed from something he's reported, he's always owned up to it, tried to publish follow-up reports. I imagine he'll publish a follow-up report to this. It's just ludicrous. And it's like, guys, this shouldn't be this hard. It doesn't work like this in sports. Have you seen the back page of a newspaper, right? It's just full of transfer rumors and gossip. And this guy, the standard is actually lower than in esports. I say this month after month. It's just, we saw Lionel Messi having a physio at Middlesbrough. Like, he's going to join Middlesbrough out of nowhere in a shock move. And that'll just be published. And the player doesn't come out and refute it. His teammates don't come out and refute it. Neither team comes out and refutes it. If they get asked specifically at a press conference, they may address it. But they just understand that that is the nature of the game, and people will speculate and report based on information they've got. The average sports journalist has a way worse ratio of accuracy to false stories than the average esports reporter. And yet you get raked over the coals over meaningless shit like this. It's fucking so stupid. And as I said, when we talk a lot about, like, responsibility, right? You, me, we're not allowed to tweet, right? Because we've got hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers. You can't go on Twitter and say, fuck this, right? Because one of your followers might be, deranged and take it as a signal, a secret code to go and do something heinous. And we get called out for that all the time. Yet organizations and professional players do far worse on a daily basis by basically coming out, very often knowingly lying to their fan base, and then they just sit back and watch the fan base go to town on the people they've highlighted to be targeted. So It's amazing, really, that this shit is still going on in 2018. I think any organization that ever wants a courtesy from me professionally, when I know they've done this, you are on the go fuck yourself list forever from me. 2 can play at the blackballing game, motherfucker. Next time you've got a scandal and you want a credible voice to come out and fucking lend its weight or spread the word or publish the counter report, I will not be there to do that for you, NIP. And I guarantee it's coming. I guarantee you'll need it. You all come crawling back in the fucking end. Everyone who's ever blackballed me always came back wanting to play nice. Right? Because I'm going nowhere, motherfucker. But your business can be up and down in the blink of an eye. Your sponsors can go like that. I fucking endure. I last. You need a budget. All I need is a keyboard. So get your fucking head out your ass. Right. Let's talk about another thing.
By the way, just one thing I will say as well, as an actual like PSA for the community, is if you are a player involved in a team or a coach or a press agent, DK is actually one of the most fucking reasonable people in the scene. If you message him privately, if he follows you on Twitter or whatever, and so just send him a DM or get his contact info from someone else. Everyone has his contact info. If you actually just say to him something along the lines like, "Well, this is not what I heard," and he won't give up his sources, but he'll basically probably tell you what the fuck's going on. Oh, actually, well, no, it's someone else in the org, He'll actually give you the info you are seeking, as long as you don't double down like a moron and just say it's false. So actually, half of these things could be resolved. And the reason I'm saying this is, it would even help you if you're a player. Like, guess what? You'd find out that actually is someone within your org who's giving info that's going to happen, and that's extra information for you. But to do so, you have to understand the premise that you don't live in some like mad world of facts where you're all just prove, that can't be true because I haven't heard the same thing or whatever the fuck logic they use,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So look, while we're putting fucking sacred cows down with the fucking bullet to the head, let's fucking talk about FaZe. Because this fucking... I know, here we go. Here we go. Well, apart from the fact, I wasn't even going to bring this up on the show. I don't know if you saw that FaZe are getting sued.
That was funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It's not really relevant to CSGO, and I can already tell it's going to be a long podcast. But, just go Google that. FaZe are getting sued over supposed trademark infringement because there's a clothing company called FaZe, and some of their clothes look kind of similar because obviously FaZe leave the word clan off a lot of their clothes. So that's going to be interesting. Looking forward to that one, just in case anyone's curious. Yes, the clothing company did exist before the FaZe clan trademark. That's not necessarily a slam dunk in cases like this, though. So that's going to be interesting. But anyway, there's a much bigger thing going on. The CSGO team. And as I said, I'm about to say some fucking controversial shit. So whatever. So they've had this on-off situation with olofmeister, and olofmeister recently announced that he was coming back. He was going to be back in action at the ECS Season 5 finals. Now, a caveat before we start going nuts, several people have told me supposedly what's going on in olofmeister's life. If it's true, it's incredibly sad. I understand why he would be distracted by it. It's not my place to publish it. I got too much respect for the guy. There's a lot of speculation in the space. I think speculation like that isn't helpful, although I understand people are going to do it. All I know is you do what's right for you. You do what's right for your life. You do what you can live with moving forward. And certainly there are more important things in life than even being one of the best in the world and winning trophies in any sport. So I've got a lot of sympathy with olofmeister's position, but I will just simply say this. At this juncture, it's clear that whatever it is in his life is the priority, and as a result, FaZe should cut him the fuck loose, because this is just a ridiculous situation for one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, assembled teams of all time to constantly be missing tournaments or playing with stand-ins or doing this. Sometimes it's like it's okay to cut a player even though they did nothing wrong. It's a business, it's a team, and unless the other 4 players are absolutely adamant that they want to play with olofmeister again at some point in the future, whenever that might fucking be, then I think the managers have to come in and make the hard decision and fucking cut him from the fucking team, because they're just going to be, they're leaving trophies on the fucking shelves right now. And we've got Astralis on absolute fucking fire. We've got other teams climbing that fucking ladder. Are you winning trophies in 2019 FaZe? I don't know. And I think you've really got to fucking make a decision here, because as I said, Olaf Meister said he was coming back and then had to pull out again and put a statement out, which, I'll in the interests of completion, I will read you the statement where he just said, "I thought I was ready to come back, but I was not. I really want to make it work, but stress my comeback. In doing so, it's all my own fault, and I should have listened to myself. My biggest sorry goes out to my team, who I know have been put in an unfortunate situation. I also want to say sorry to the fans." Like, honestly, at this point, I think Olaf Meister's been too long out the team. There'll even be so much work to do, even if he does come back, that you may as well go out and commit to another player. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you notice the circumstances of even what he said publicly, he said in his statement, like, I thought I could come back, but I can't or whatever. That alone tells you were playing with fire ever thinking that there was any timeline for this sort of thing, and that you would, all right, so we can let the Exist definitely go to that other team now, yeah, and then we can just get Olaf Meister back. It's like, what are you doing? In fact, if anything, I would have been making a stronger commitment to Exist, even if it's in the short term. At least that team was working. I mean, you won a fucking tournament with him. I'd at least be like, you know what? Listen, we're FaZe Clan. We have money. Let's do a nice little 6-month contract with you. We'll keep Olaf on the bench for 6 months. If he can get his head together in 3 or 4 months, cool. If not, you know what? This is a chance for you not just to make a lucrative earning and win trophies, but if it turns out being amazing with you, maybe we just stick with you. I'd have made some sort of really nice halfway house sort of gesture in that scenario. So instead, you've given up Exist, as you've seen by what's happened. Like, for example, this Belo Horizonte one where they had to get, it's something mad, like they had to get a player who hadn't played in any qualifier or any ESL tournament for, I think it was like a period of months. Hence why they're pulling that Harvey guy out of the fucking phantom zone that Superman put him in about 7 months ago when he didn't sign for Immortals or whatever the fuck. Because where was this cunt? Where's he? And even he's like, nah, I can't do it. So as you said, the sick thing is right now, this is a team that can win championships right now. They can win titles. And in fact, even worse, the Belo Horizonte event doesn't have Astralis and is one of FaZe's 3 remaining chances to get the Grand Slam. They're halfway there. They've got 2. So if they could have won 2 out of the 3, not inconceivable with one being actually a lot easier with no Astralis, that could be $1 million. So even in terms of just not only would you win trophies with your teammates, they would also potentially get this massive payday on top of it, basically for nothing. It's just a marketing stunt that they could really have come out on. So, yeah, I mean, it's really, really tough, especially when you add into the equation for people like Guardian. He's explicitly said this is his last go around. No one knows from Guardian's perspective how long he's going to play for. I get the feeling personally, it's not just that FaZe is his last team, but it's like FaZe being good is his last team. As in, I don't think he just stays with FaZe for 3 years if they go to shit next year and they have like an average team. I think that's when he probably says time to hang it up, So there's so many sort of important aspects at play here that, I agree. You can't put it all on Olaf Meister. I mean, for a start off, no player should be sort of able to hold the whole roster hostage. It's up to the team eventually to figure that scenario out. But this just looks like a clusterfuck from top to bottom, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, so think about this, though. They can't even use the same stand-in now, like you say, because they let Exist go. Obviously, Exist had that opportunity. So at ECS, they're going to use the Norwegian player, Kroman, who, by the way, when he played for Heroic as a stand-in, I was worried that maybe Rubinho doesn't get back in the team. He played that fucking well. So he was like Heroic standout player. So I think they've got a fucking great player there. But now, okay, they're off to Belo Horizonte, or whatever the fuck it's called. It definitely sounds like a position in the fucking Kama Sutra. But they're off to Belo fucking Horizonte.
Apparently it just means something like lovely horizon or something, or lovely, something like that. Yeah, lovely sunsets, I don't know. Yeah,
Bella means beautiful. Horizonte, horizon. Yeah.
Something
Good,
like that.
good. Yeah, no, I'm down for it. So anyway, so then they said they were going to get Harvey. Again, I'm with you. Like, this wasn't even the Fortress of Solitude. This was the Fortress of Shitness. Nobody wanted this cunt. He couldn't even get in the Brazilian mix-up when that entire scene disintegrated and went to shit. Somehow he was just fucking, remember me? Yeah. Does anyone remember me? Like, you didn't even play for the team that you were famous for being on. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, who is this guy? But obviously he's fucking Brazilian. So they're like, fuck it, we're in Brazil. Let's go get us a Brazilian player, right? Who's the best that isn't accounted for? Harvey, get Kogu or something, like, please, like, at least get a brand name, please, like, even if this guy turns out to fucking play well, it would have been a bad call, but then it doesn't even matter because he can't even play. He can't even play. So this is how much of a fuck up this whole not having a fifth situation is getting into. Harvey
also,
can't even play for fucking FaZe in the end, so they still don't have a fifth for this Brazilian event.
Harvey, I know they asked you last minute, mate, so I don't blame you entirely. But you know what? As Richard alluded to, you're not even a has-been, you're a never was. So in this scenario,
it's so brutal to say it, but it is true.
You just got your best ever shot at the big time. You were going to get to play in FaZe Clan with fucking bona fide legends. Who knows? If you do well, you might even win the fucking tournament. All you had to do this time, Harvey, was be able to play in a tournament in your own motherfucking home country. If you can't manage that, mate, I feel like just giving up. It's not going to happen for you, is it? What are you hoping for?
So retarded. How can he not play? What is gone on? Like, I hope it's not some mad contractual fucking dispute. Like, that would be fucking mind blowing if it was. But he said, in a statement he put out, he said it has nothing to do with Immortals, just some unluckiness, but I am used to it as part of my career. I'll be out of Twitter for some time.
I've always been unlucky, me.
Yeah, I don't even know what that fucking means, by the way. I don't even know what
always down in the dumps.
Maybe he's on some like fucking Two-Face shit. I mean, obviously that's Fallen's particular bag, but maybe he's on some shit like heads I go, tails again. He just knows his only coins just tails on both sides. Fuck. Should I join Immortals? Tails again. Harvey, can I take a look at that coin? No, it's my lucky coin.
Yeah, fucking Harvey No Face. It's just so unreasonable. But anyway, like, some people are in the chat spamming. It's because he played in the qualifier, which I suppose is fair enough if that is accurate, because he wouldn't know he was going to get a FaZe call up. He couldn't not play in a qualifier because of it. I think that's an unfortunate rule if that is the truth. But just, I'm a Duncan, like, fucking hell. What have you got to do? Like, it's. You know what I mean? Come on, mate. Get a grip. So anyway, like I say, FaZe, as of this moment, are going to Brazil without a fucking fifth player, which is just, look, I know Olaf Mike said didn't intend for any of this, and it's unfortunate circumstances, but I hate it when I see teams that have got money and talent and, like, managers are just hand off, like, oh, well, we've got it all, like, it's going to work out. We'll let the players decide. No, an adult needs to step in here and make a tough decision and basically say, like, look, we all feel sorry for Olaf Meister, but this is just not good enough. We're now attending two major tournaments we would have had a chance of winning with stand-ins. That's money for you, money for the org. That's obviously potential sponsors and more money moving forward. Luster and this is now starting to have too detrimental an effect on what we're doing here as a project, and it's tough, but that's what I would do.
I also really hate the element, which is like, here's the thing: if FaZe doesn't have a fifth and they just go, we have to pull out the event, fair enough. Like, in this particular case for the Belo Horizonte one, they would be fucked because getting a visa for Brazil is no joke, apparently. And I know some people probably couldn't get it, so I think you'd probably end up with just a local team. So sure, that one's bad. ECS, right, you did play the whole online season. You don't want to give that one up, man. You're already in the finals. You're going to at least score. Fair enough. But the problem here is, that's the other issue. Normal teams in the old days would just pull out. They go, look, forget not having a chance to win. If we have to take literally a complete random, we're going to do terribly. But sadly, there's a whole bunch of teams out there, and I would go ahead and assume FaZe is one of them, where, as cynical as it is, they don't give a fuck if you come last place. Go to that LAN, put on the FaZe jersey, drink some fucking G Fuel in the halftime segment or whatever it is they all do nowadays, and then just do what you can. And if you come last place, doesn't matter. The exposure's all that we care about. You still went to another tournament. Because I have to feel like if you're the team, it must be beyond depressing if it's like, who's doing our fifth? What, we're still going, are we? Like, this is just garbage. And unfortunately, it does spoil the tournament, because I looked at that lineup, and the first thing I thought was, hey, at least they've got FaZe there. What is Olaf Mack? Sick. At least I'll get to see him win, The narrative of the whole tournament's just nothing now.
So we'll do the other bits of news that I've got lined up here. Obviously, while we're talking about free agents, NBK is going to come up in a little bit. So just some thoughts, have some thoughts ready on that. But obviously, we've seen the announcement of G2. It's official what the lineup's going to be. So we now know it's going to be basically your dream fucking team. It certainly isn't mine. Shocks, Kenny S, Body, SmithZz in existence. It's official. I do want to say, while we're talking about stupidity, which is going to be a running theme on the fucking show, I don't know what SmithZz did to sort of earn such blind devotion from the Reddit community at large. And you're going to go, Richard, what do you mean? They all fucking hated him. They all said he was shit. Can't say that no more, mate. You can't say that at all now. In fact, some of the revisionist history, like Stalin's fucking looking over going, it's a bit much, in it. And he killed motherfuckers and deleted them out of photographs, right? The situation with SmithZz, right, got so stupid round about the peak of the fucking Dust Moret thing, where Dust, like, just unfortunately didn't read that the circle jerk was just starting a counter jerk, right?
Exactly.
He just didn't notice. It's classic.
He was like, he's the guy where you're all joking around, and then it's getting more and more wild, a bit of roughhousing, you're all making jokes. And then he's the one who goes, yeah, and then I fucked your mother. And you go, his mother just died. And he goes, oh, fuck, what have I done? And then it's like, hey, leave it, but look, he said something wrong, He's the guy who did that, didn't he? He's shouting out.
Like, literally, it was like the day before he made that joke. I think there was a thread. Like, I was like researching it all. And I think there was a thread going, this SmithZz hate is now borderline bullying. And Dust must have missed it. And he went on the show going, I got a fucking roast lined up. The community will love me for this. Give me that copper face. Woo, SmithZz, you shit cunt. And like, he's got absolutely
funny anymore.
Yeah, I know. Literally because of that. Like, his entire career absolutely fucked because he didn't check Reddit that day. But anyway, so here's the thing. Fucking SmithZz, come on. I know you put that tweet out where you were like, oh, the people who hated on SmithZz, blah, blah, whatever it was. Completely overlooking the fact you called
Rinsed him for years. Rinsed him for years.
I got my fucking yards out of that boy.
Right? But here's the thing. He was fucking shit at the end. He really was bad. Yeah. Like, at Open, look, but I was reading comments in the thread about this team when it was kind of first floated by Nell, and people were going, the thing is, SmithZz never wanted to be an AWPer. He's actually a really good rifler, but he was made to AWP by all of the lineups he was in.
That's nonsense, yeah.
What is that? Who's peddling this lie? And then people were saying, yeah, I know that to be true as well because SmithZz said it. Brilliant, right? A player who's having a terrible time playing shit, explaining why he's shit in his own. I'll definitely take that as a credible insight. Yeah, it's everyone else, isn't it? Not me. Yeah, brilliant. Must be true, right? So I watched SmithZz throughout his entire Source career. Very rarely did he pick up the rifle. Now, yes, if you go on HLTV and you look at his stats, he's got more rifle kills than AWP kills.
Because he's shit.
Because he's shit with the AWP, right? Rule number one, he misses all the fucking time. And second of all, he obviously, when he plays with a better AWPer or when he plays in a Shocks team, which we know historically he always does, fucking Shocks will just go, give me that fucking shooter like he's Bricktop and start trying to AWP when he can't. Right, so we know why SmithZz occasionally. Well,
to be fair, I think you've just actually explained one of the mysteries of the universe, Richard, which is why does amazing clutch round rifler Shocks ever AWP? Because obviously he watches SmithZz and he goes, actually, I'm not fucking bad with this, am I?
Yeah, exactly. So so obviously, yeah. He was having some trouble towards the end. But this mad revisionist fucking history about how he never was an AWPer and he was always kind of made to AWP, it was always a secondary thing he wanted to do, is absolute nonsense, especially if you followed his Source career. And here's the thing. All the people who were out there batting for SmithZz and like hoping this team's going to work out, and yeah, SmithZz is back. Apart from the fact you were all probably the same motherfuckers shitting on him every day. He's got no respect for you, by the way, or anything you think, as evidenced by the Your Les Noobs post. He thinks you can look at him missing a load of shots, and your opinion on whether he's good or not doesn't count because he can throw a flashbang. He thinks you're fucking morons. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been calling you morons all day, so fair enough. But like, why are people going to bat for him? It's the maddest counter.
No, especially because like that was what made the Yolas Noobs post so egregious, is because the basic gist of it, the sentiment, was obviously accurate, which is that people who aren't in a team don't really know what anyone does and have weird metrics for judging how good you are. Like, for example, if you're super flashy, as we discussed earlier, you will get overrated. If you have a really boring playing style, people will be like, you're actually not that good, whereas maybe that guy's wicked. I mean, I would actually say that's where the last few years, the guy who I've seen the opposite with is MBK. You look on Reddit, people talk like he's been dog shit. I think he's a fucking wicked player who always fills his role, knows what he's doing. So, okay, fair enough, the sentiment was reasonable. The problem is, SmithZz did then use that logic to imply that when you watched him miss AWP shots with the most expensive gun in the game and the lowest kill reward, that somehow anything could explain that into being reasonable. Whereas, like, no, that is, like, unfortunately, you pick the one gun.
He is really good at flashing.
That is abject failure when you miss with that gun. Like, there's no extra bonus to missing an AWP shot. You know, the closest you could come is if someone tried to use that like League of Legends logic of like, oh, he's zoning him off with the AWP. He's making sure they can't come through. Like, that's about the closest you could mind fuck yourself into going. But let's be real. He was just shit in the bed, wasn't he? So I never understood why he picked that hill to die on. If I'd have been him, I would have done what he did when basically I had a discussion with him a few years back where he had one of those classic ones where they come up to you in the bar when they've had a few drinks and they want to talk it through or whatever. And that's where I got that humorous thing where he said he was the best flashbang player. But here's the thing. I've even always pointed out that while that is on its surface patently ludicrous, there is actually a truth beneath that I do appreciate, which is that, yeah, he is someone where he has a team mentality and he has done a pretty good job in his career of working with his in-game leaders. And I do get the sense that one of the reasons why Shox likes him around is he probably is a good friend, a good teammate, good attitude in general.
Undoubtedly, he's a fucking great team player. Undoubtedly. But unfortunately, you can't be the number one AWPer on a team.
Absolutely. Exactly.
The concept of support AWPer, it's weird, isn't it? How it's the SmithZz and the Skadoodles of the world, isn't it? Like, you never hear about how Guardian, we got Guardian doing all the fucking flashbangs. We got Kenny S doing all that. Like, no, you don't. You have them go out and kill motherfuckers.
I made this point to someone I can't remember when it was, when someone was talking about Skadoodle. It might even just been a private conversation. The problem is I have too many fucking podcasts I'm on, so I can't even remember what even was that in my own mind or for real? Was like, yeah, I'll continue. So anyway, I remember once saying to someone who was trying to argue that, Skadoodle does more than you realise. I just said this. Who's ever been the best team in the world and had their AWPer be like that? The closest you can come, basically, is at the beginning of CSGO when Fiflaren occasionally AWPed. That's about it. And even then, he was absolutely not a fucking primary AWPer. Like, certain maps he didn't buy it, certain scenarios he didn't buy it. They were a 5 rifle team generally. So if this concept exists of a support AWPer, one, why is it all the old primary AWPers who are shit now who claim that they're doing it? There's not someone who comes up like, right, that's my whole career, support AWPer. And number two, because that makes it look like you're just making excuses for a guy who fell off. And number two, where are the teams making it work and fucking killing the scene and just like raking in trophies? Don't exist, as far as I can tell. I don't think they've ever existed. So it's like, it does beg a belief, the idea that that's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've said a lot about this lineup before when it was first announced. I won't go over it again. I think, honestly, like any French, I don't like any French team that doesn't have MBK in it. I don't like the idea that out of the 3 players that were available, Body, MBK, or Apex, Body gets the nod. It seems mad to me. I think Shox and Kenny S have to do so much in that team to make it work. But for tacticians, I'm sure it's going to be a wet dream. But whatever. So let's talk about MBK free agency. MBK is now available, basically saying G2 are allowing him to explore his options, and he's very open to playing international. Now, one of the things that perhaps not a lot of people know about MBK is he was always adamant from a very fucking young age. He's only 23, but he's been playing professionally since he was 15. So he feels like he's certainly got more tenure and experience than the average 23-year-old by some distance. And MBK was always absolutely adamant about learning English, and having that, if it doesn't work out for me as a pro player, maybe I can stream, maybe I can find other things to do. I am going to need to learn English in order to do that. And that is why he always does the interviews in every team he's in. His English is impeccable, and he's really worked incredibly hard at it. So out of all of the French players, you would say would be suited to playing in a, international team, NBK undoubtedly fits that bill. And, English is pretty much his primary language.
Yes.
I think it's interesting. For me, he is one of the most desirable pickups that we've ever seen in a CS free agency. I think every team he goes on, he makes better. He doesn't have the kind of ego when it comes to like what roles he's going to play. He'll play whatever he needs to do for the team. I think even had a period where he was a fucking AWPer. The guy's been at, he's tried in-game leading. He'll play support. He'll play aggressive. He'll pick up the AWP if he needs to. This guy will literally just do whatever it takes to fit into a team and make it work to the best that it can. So I just wondered if you thought whereabouts he might end up, because, he's been heavily suggested that Cloud9 could be a potential home for him. That rumor's certainly done the rounds. And, he would be the guy sort of coming in for where FNS is.
I mean, if he's that's the real issue there, is if Tarek's going to be the in-game leader and you bring MBK in, okay, because obviously, I mean, people are aware of this. I just don't think he's suited to be an in-game leader. I think if you look at the results and you look at his own hesitation, I think there's a reason behind it. And I think even though he gave it I'll give him credit, he gave it much more of like the real college try this time around, but it just doesn't seem like it's suited to him, especially because it does the classic move that usually happens when people like Coldzera, Shocks become in-game leaders, of like, it's going to mess your own game up as well. You're actually more valuable elsewhere. The difference is we could get a guy to be about as good as you are as an in-game leader, but we can't get someone to be NBK and fill in any role in the scene and play a supportive aspect or be a second entry in guy. And then, as you're saying, basically, yeah, on paper, it'll sound weird because you think, come on, in a world of like Simple and Nico who could go to any team, how could he really be one of the most desirable free agents? Because this guy ticks every box that you could want for any kind of player except just frag people in the server. If you want just frag people in the server, yeah, you're right. You know what? No matter what team you've got, get Nico or Simple. They're probably the only people that have proven they could do it on almost any single team. It doesn't matter who the teammates are. But if you want someone who is a model professional, puts in the hours no matter what, can seemingly play with any personality type, any style of team, people will forget that aspect. Remember, this guy was in one of the best tactical CSGO teams of all time and one of the best anti-tactical CSGO teams of all time. And he's the only fucking connecting factor between all these teams. Like, I know Shocks has been in a lot of these teams, but it's often actually after Shocks gets kicked out that they have fabulous results as well. So it really is only NBK that sort of aligns most of the best French teams of all time for exactly that reason, that he's been able to go around different roles. He's always someone you want in your team. Like, I think it's very telling that the main reason he's not really in this other team now with Shocks is because he's the sort of person who was like, fuck no, I'm not joining this team. Why would I want to be in this team? This team sounds like garbage. He basically chose not to be in it. Like, I don't know if people saw this, they might have forgotten, but when it was announced that G2 had these two lineups in mind, and because Shocks had to go and get his wrist fixed anyway, they logically thought, path of least resistance, give NBK a shot now. If it succeeds, sorry, Shocks, we can't have you in the team anymore. If it fails, as it did, we gave you your fair go. Now Shocks gets to have his team and we get to keep Shocks. Best for everyone. Well, when they did that, and it was announced that Shocks said, no matter what, whether it's in G2 or not, I'll play with Existence and SmithZz, and that's going to be my team. Existence did a little interview somewhere, I forget where it was, might have been on a podcast or something, where he actually said that his dream lineup was basically that team, but with NBK instead of body. He literally said, I think NBK would be the best anchor type player in the whole scene, as he's proven. And that
historically
would be
played together for
absolutely,
years.
Yes. So you have to realize it's not on that end of the equation that NBK is not in the team. NBK essentially is actively chosen not to. And listen, even though Shock after the fact has been like, I wouldn't want him anyway. It's like, mate, that's like when the girl turns you down. It's probably lesbian anyway. It's like that's the CS equivalent of that, bullshit, Shocks. Like, that's one of the things I've even said. I've said it in the video that I'm going to bring out after this about this lineup is. Another way of thinking of this lineup is don't be too reductionist and think, does this lineup work or fail? Because at the end of the day, if Existence, Kenny S and Shocks like playing together, they're not just going to fucking blow the team up if the first lineup doesn't succeed. What they'll probably do is go, you know what? we're working like a motherfucker. Why don't we get that NBK guy who's just wasted 3 months in Cloud9 or Mouse Sports or wherever he goes? Why don't we bring him into the lineup? So yeah, I agree. For me, especially with the English language part, where basically, I mean, I'll just be real. I know people try to tell fuckers like Pasha this to put their confidence up. You speak English better than some people I know. He doesn't. He speaks English barely better than himself 4 years ago. MBK legitimately speak. Just a shot of Pasha. I love you. He speaks English better legit than some people who are natives. Like, I mean, obviously he actually has lived with his girlfriend for many years, and as far as I know, I think he communicates with her in English. So fabulous English. He's also a pretty intelligent guy, you know, just in the context of everyone else referencing there. And so yeah, I think he would be fabulous, because here's the key thing: that sort of role is already super light on the ground, like legit people who are overqualified support players. I mean, you basically have got fucking Zipniks, MBK. The list gets short. Beyond that, it's the people where they're good at support role because that's all they can do. Taco, you know, these sorts of people. So if you can actually get one, it's fucking worth their weight in gold. So I would say yes. Cloud9, if they can get him, definitely should. I think that'd be a very good move. I don't know if he'd enjoy living in America. That might be a flaw in the premise, since as far as I know, he lives in, where I think Austria or something with his girlfriend. That might not be a long-term proposition. Then again, you can do it for 6 months. You can see how it works out. I would personally say, as harsh as it sounds, this is exactly where for your Mouse Sports, that's the fucking killer move you make there. That's your equivalent of Team Liquid getting Taco in. You got the star players. What you want is someone who's going to round out the team with the experience, facilitate you. That'd be a dream pickup, I think. FaZe is even one. If I'm FaZe, I'm thinking about that one. What? Olafmeister can't come in the team. How about we get someone who actually can fucking do it all, and probably we get to live in Europe still, so we'll probably love the opportunity to be in the number one team again.
But I think that speaks volumes to like what MBK brings, though, doesn't it? That you can literally see FaZe probably have thought about it as soon as he was announced, like, especially with everything that's happened with Olaf. They probably have given it some serious consideration. I think if he goes to Cloud9, perhaps in terms of fan base, I mean, sure, obviously going to FaZe, it would be slightly better, but I could see how it might work for MBK on that kind of level. I'm agreed with you. I think if you want a Cloud9 that can maybe get back to being close to the major winning Cloud9, you bring JDM for Skadoodle and you bring in MBK for FNS, and Tarek goes back to in-game leading. That's how you fix Cloud9.
Team, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how you fix Cloud9 in its current form. But certainly, the Mouse Sports move has got to be incredibly fucking tantalizing. He'd get to stay in Austria probably, and certainly if not, it's not that far. You know, obviously, German-based team, even though they're registered in the UK. Sticko dropping out of the team is an obvious move. I mean, it's not that Sticko did anything wrong, and he was certainly an upgrade to Dennis, and has been a great servant to the team.
It's just a slam dunk if you can get MBK, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the hard decision. You know, and obviously we all saw Sticko on fucking Instagram, and, you know, it's been personally hard for me. Like, everyone hating on me. You know I didn't play well. I'm going to try and get back there. You know, nobody likes to see that. It's not very nice to see, you know, players get so dejected. But again, fuck your feelings. Fuck your feelings. I can get NBK and Mouse Sports. So I think NBK will announce the team very soon. And I think wherever he goes, they're going to be a better team for having him. Too good to stay in free agency for more than a couple of weeks. Right, so that's that done. One final piece of news, and then we'll talk about Star Series. Obviously, I learned today, by the way, what fucking pathetic bitches among our peer group we actually have. Right? Thank fuck for Yanko, who's a real man. He's out there with his girlfriend on her birthday, taking pictures, having a drink, having a good time.
Good on you. Congrats.
Yeah. Right? Fucking love. There's a man. Right? What are the likes of Anders and little Momo doing? Well, I'll tell you. They're tweeting about how great it is that MIBR has announced their return, made in Brazil. Obviously, I love these guys. I'm fucking with them a little bit. They are my friends, just in case you don't understand the pantomime and theatrics involved in making a podcast interesting. But I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, first of all, made in Brazil coming back, the worst kept secret in esports ever. Like, probably ever. We announced it, it must be 9 months ago?
Months.
Like, we said it was happening. We told you exactly it was going to be a team, how it was all going to work. We told you all of that. It's been reported in Brazil. It's been reported by DK. It's been reported by Nell. Everybody knows. So the idea that now that it's officially announced, everyone's coming out going, "Oh, God bless you, Mary Poppins." Like, fucking hell. We've known about it for a year, you mad cunts. But anyway, ignore that, right? Made in Brazil. Yeah, great brand. Lots of memories. Remember them in 1.6 myself. Remember that weird iteration they had after that where it was run by some absolute cunts. And I think Tony Blair's son was an investor in it. I know, mad, right? A mad story. Talk to Ben Woodward about
any
that.
Any blood for oil, was there? Not in my name.
Just fucking tell me how to play CS, Lord. All these like fucking right-wing, fucking fundamentalist Christian fucking, fuck them. Fuck. Don't get me started on Blair. Fuck, the podcast will take an unbelievable turn. War criminals, basically. So anyway, we all have fond memories of Made in Brazil. Of course we do. I think people are just going to town a little bit. Nostalgia is a hell of a fucking drug. I don't know what's wrong with some people. I saw that trailer for the fucking Tetris game the other day, and everyone was going like, there's a new Tetris coming out, and it's going to be like some fucking virtual reality 3D experience.
Sounds necessary.
Yeah, and like there's some guy, some fake scientist saying, "Oh, it's the Tetris effect," and all this like, and loads of people were tweeting out going, "Sent shivers down my spine. What an amazing trailer." It's utter garbage. It's throwaway. Yeah, it's throwaway garbage. It's the most overhyped shit I've seen all year, right? And people are just yeah, and it's just I just got that same vibe. Maybe I woke up on the wrong side of bed, mate. I don't know.
Why are people like this though? Why is it if someone hears like, "Have you seen VR chess?" It's like, why would I want that though? It's just even chess. I mean, that's the mad thing in this scenario you're talking about now. They're not even interested in Tetris. Like, that's ages old. So why they're going off about Tetris, a new version, I don't even understand, Yeah, similarly, I don't really get the appeal of the MIBR aspect. Like, it has literally zero connection with anything you liked about MIBR, aside from it will have some Brazilian players. That's it. It doesn't have a single player who is in an MIBR. Remember, Fallen wasn't. Doesn't have ownership people from MIBR. It's Immortals that owns it, American Org. If anything, this would be a perfect time for. This is how you know these cunts don't actually follow esports, Rich. This would be the perfect time for Complete and all those dog shit like sub brands of Kotaku and Polygon to write an article about cultural appropriation with an American brand, just buying up a famous South American one and then enlisting their players as some sort of like slave wage labor force. I'd be going with that angle. That's how you know they don't actually follow esports. That's straight fire right there. That's like that'd blaze across the editor's desk, and I'd be. I mean, I wouldn't because I'm a white male, so I'd never be like top of the fucking billboard, will I? But I'd be killing it in their world. Sadly, they haven't thought of that.
I mean, look, it's like we said before. I think it's a great brand. I think it's a great brand to bring back while you've still got Brazilian players that are capable of, delivering on that promise of being the best in the world with that particular brand attached to it. I've got nothing against Noah Winston. I think he's a sound guy, really nice dude, interacts with both of us, even when we said less than, charitable things about him.
Once.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a long time ago. He knows that.
Friendly banter.
Yeah, exactly. He knows how the game is played. He's a smart kid. So the reality is, though, I just thought, like, all these people tweeting about, like how it enriches our scene. Guys, like, we've got fucking computers detecting cheaters now and just banning loads of cheaters for the first time. No tweets about that. No, no tweets about all these like net positives that are happening for CS:GO. Speculation. Will it be going free to play? Because now we've got if we get a handle on the cheating problem, we could certainly, have it, and we got trust factor working. Tweet about that and how fucking amazing that is. Not like some brand that is, the same name as a brand you used to love, but has absolutely no connection. Do you remember when they brought back Monster Munch? Do you remember you remember Monster Munch, the
Monster
crisp?
Munch fucking banging, mate.
Right,
is
Monster Munch.
Yeah.
No, they went away for a while. The flavors are different, mate.
I'm sure it tastes the same. I've had the
It's always been banging, mate. It's always been banging.
Flaming hot is a new thing. There was no flaming hot back in my day, mate. In the 80s.
Sure, there was in the 90s. Yeah, 90s there was flaming hot.
How old are you, Ken?
90s. 90s there was flaming hot.
You got the wrong fucking monster.
No, I'm not, mate. Listen, in the 80s, flaming hot Flaming Hot was not an original flavor of Monster Munch. End of
What
fucking
is this discussion?
Right? So anyway, when they brought Monster Munch back, first of all, they're not big, are they? What's monstrous about the tiny
They're pretty
little
fucking big, but they're quite large. I had a
Right.
pack at 2 days
Compare
ago,
the
they were pretty
size.
fucking large,
Compare the size of original 80s Monster with this.
Wait a minute. That's like
You got
because your
about
hands
five
were
in a
small.
bag.
Yeah, wasn't that
No,
so?
where are we going?
No,
These
no.
are massive.
I feel like this is some mad Mandela effect. Like I have all these.
No. Right,
I swear. I was
Google
loving it.
Monster Munch size change. It's a well-documented phenomenon. Right, it's a well-documented phenomenon.
Save money.
They've changed the size of Monster Munch and the flavour.
Union, Brussels, out of control as well. Brexit, UK.
Right?
Here we go, mate. I got the fucking facts. The original flavour for Monster Munch when it launched was roast beef, followed on by saucy, then pickled onion flavours a year later. In the 80s, flavours such as sizzling bacon, cheese and onion, king prawn, salt and vinegar were introduced. By the 90s, the full flavours available were pickled onion, roast beef, smoked beef bacon, and saucy. Doesn't say when.
Saucy was the original equivalent of Flaming Hot. You won't beat me on 80s confectionery, guys. What the fuck on?
My mastermind subject is Monster Munch in the 1980s.
Yeah, you probably don't even remember the
They
race.
relaunched them in 1995, mate, is when Flaming Hot came out. 1995.
You fucking go. And I'll also tell you, just Google this, by the way. Tudor Crisps, which were the legendary sort of northeastern brand. In fact, my aunt used to work in Tudor Crisp. There was a Tudor Crisp factory down the road from where I used to live, right? They used to do this curry-flavoured crisp, and it's the most racist crisp packet you will ever see in your life. It has an Indian man on a magic carpet on the front. It is so reasonable.
Sounds fucking amazing. Sounds like he'd show me a whole new world.
Right?
Of curry-flavoured confectionaries.
So just putting that out there. So you won't beat me on 80s confectionery. Anyway, the whole point is, right, before we get sidetracked, well, fucking Monster Munch and all that shit, right, is the new Monster Munch, the Monster Munch you're eating today is not my Monster Munch. Hashtag not my Monster Munch, right?
Never Monster Munch.
Resist.
I'm still with Monster Munch, right? It's not my Monster Munch. I don't get nostalgia when I see Monster Munch. I know it's different shit in the bags.
So wait, the only thing you can ever enjoy twice is if it's exactly the same as it ever was when it was first made. How can you go to a restaurant, mate? Hang on, there's fucking 3 grams of extra cheese on my burger. How do you expect me to enjoy this? This is a whole new experience.
They completely changed the flavour, different chemicals. They had to take some out because they cause cancer.
Yeah, but they're probably banging ones now. They're still good, but you need a new.
It's always the good ones that give you cancer as well. All the delicious ones.
They did it with the Bombay Bad Boy pot noodles as well.
They did fuck up the Bombay Bad Boy. I'll give you that.
There you go. They used to have this chemical in a specific E number that was linked to being a carcinogen. They took it out and it tastes shit now. Pot noodles, it's like eating a paper plate. Now it's fucking garbage.
Yeah, shit.
Right. Anyway, so I'm just saying, MIBR is fucking Monster Munch for little Momo. So,
unfortunately, as well, there are too many people. Like obviously, in the case of Moses, he actually is old school. But you also do see.
You're right. I didn't think about that.
There's way too many people who go with the angle of like, oh, used to bloody love you in 1.6, like someone where you're like, you know, that guy played like 2 years at the end and wasn't really prominent there. No, I knew that. Yep, I knew that. It's like they do. People are always trying to extend the history back, aren't they? And just make out like they remember all that shit, you know.
That's what I mean. It's not even real nostalgia. It's fake.
Exactly.
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Can't be asked. Right. Anyway, that's the news. Let's talk about the event, shall we? I'm fucking getting hungry now. Talking about all this food.
I think we should get you as the sort of on the off-camera consultant for a UK version of Stranger Things, where you're just describing exactly how like crisps tasted in your day, and then we link it to some story, you know, some sort of government story. Could work.
Soundtrack. Right, so you were at Star Series, so you had a ground's eye view of me getting wrecked once again, because 2 things I said. I said FaZe wouldn't win a trophy with Exist. Stand by that. They shouldn't have, but they did. I had the game of their lives against Astralis, but played shit in every other series. And I also said Na'Vi will never win a trophy as long as Edward and Zeus are in the team. And obviously Star Series came rolling around, and they won. They
to
won.
be fair, there was no Astralis and FaZe though.
Yeah. So yeah. You know what? I'll take the L. Fuck it. I'll take the L. I did say any trophy because that's how low I fucking rate Zeus and Edward in the team. So we'll start by talking about this Na'Vi roster. I mean, it's certainly the Na'Vi run was by no means perfect. They fucking started with a 2-0 loss against Tyloo that they had to bounce back from. They did lose to Mouse Sports at some point. If I remember rightly, didn't they have one map where they even struggled against Virtus Pro a little bit, which is kind of free? Yes.
I think they still won 2-0, but I think it was like a close series from what I remember.
Yeah, it was like 16-11, I think, but at one point I think it was tied. Virtus Pro is a free win for anyone right now. So anyway, look, what had to happen for fucking Na'Vi to win Star Series was basically Edward had to play like someone who understands Counter-Strike again. And if you go through previous tournaments and have a look at the statistics, Zeus is still there, like in the bottom 10 statistical players at the event. Even though, again, with the eye test, you remember when Zeus got that 2 kills with the AK? He should have dropped for Simple. He's fucking great now. No, he's not. He was still terrible if you take the whole tournament as the measure. But the reality is, once again, Na'Vi have just been propelled by, in particular, Simple and obviously Electronic. The dead weight that has been holding them back just wasn't really present at all. Edward certainly had one of his better tournaments, made a contribution. And that's the thing with Na'Vi. That's all it's ever needed for them to be good enough to beat the likes of the teams that they played out here. That if Simple and Zeus can just turn up.
Edward and Zeus.
Edward and Zeus can turn up once. And back up Simple and Electronic and occasionally Flamey, you will win a series. That's the power of Simple and Electronic right now. One of the best duos in World Counter-Strike. Simple, the best player we've ever had in CSGO, undoubtedly. So yes. I just wanted some thoughts about this kind of run. Obviously, they got NRG in the final. The SK series was straight fire, especially Inferno, the first map. We'll talk a little bit about that later when we get to SK. But I kind of felt that beating SK was the final. I always thought they were going to beat NRG, who had really overperformed at this tournament. But I mean, I can't see Na'Vi sustaining this. I think what happens next tournament is Edward goes back to making questionable decisions. Zeus goes back to getting 4 kills a map. Flamey has an off day, Like I don't have any faith that Na'Vi are as good as the ranking HLTV gives them, which is 3rd in the world. There's no way. There's no way.
Well, the problem is they are on the basis of the placings. That's the issue. But yeah, I agree. You look at the eye test, they've got to be one of the worst 3rd best teams in the world we've ever fucking had in the game. I mean, it's outrageous because, first of all, why are they 3rd in the world? Because they have someone who at the moment looks like the best person to ever play Counter-Strike. Now, that's actually depressing that your best is 3rd. Like, if you're the best player to ever play Counter-Strike, basically, unless you fuck this up, you'll probably be number 1. Because remember, I'm not saying he's the best player in the world now. No, he's the best player to ever play Counter-Strike. Now, if you think of that, this is one of the reasons why I don't necessarily blame fans who think that, even though it's a team game, the best player should win the trophies. Because the thing is, when you're as outrageously good as some of these players can be for periods of time, you kind of are so good, it's like you almost can win a match yourself. So when I think of the 3 examples of players who I thought were godlike, but who didn't generally win, it's like Simple before now. You got Nico and Mouse Sports, obviously, and then the other one was Kenny S when he was in that Titan team before the second French shuffle. Now, if you look at it, those 3 cases all have one thing in common, which is that the player who was in ultra godlike form had at minimum 1 or 2 players on the team who were just straight liabilities. And the whole point is the 2 of them combined can actually counteract the best player imaginable at that point in time. And therefore, it's like the equivalent of having an amazing fucking tap with loads of water coming into the bath, but you've just poked so many holes in the bath. It doesn't matter. It can't fill to the top. It will always drain down, no matter the efforts of the star player in this concept. So that's the reason I'm setting it up like that. Is I will say that the reason why I don't think your Na'Vi prediction was that ridiculous is, first of all, this wasn't all the best teams, so it's not like they were the best in the world for a day. They weren't. And then secondly, that was because the last Star Series was the absolute worst case scenario of Simple at his peak and everyone in Na'Vi looking really poor. Because if you remember, that was before Electronic kind of figured out his role in the team. Since then, they really have improved a lot. Like, obviously, Simple's still straight godlike. That's great. That's there all day long. But you know what? Electronic is a pretty legit star player as well now. Like, he actually has settled right into that. He's plus, I actually find he's pretty consistent, which is even better when you've got a superstar like Simple. And then, as you said, at this particular tournament, Edward actually looked way better than he was before. Like, a lot of he was getting just straight up killing people. He's doing a lot more better decisions. I can't really think of that many times he blew around outright on camera, which he did a lot at this other Star Series. And so I also think, to be fair, the last Star Series was almost the most ridiculous example I've ever seen of where a guy didn't just carry in terms of frags. He had to do everything. He had to open the round. He had to kill everyone. He had to win a clutch at the end. And it's like, if he didn't do some of these things, they just automatically lost the map. They just couldn't win. This time, it's like they at least understand what they're getting out of Simple and they play around him a lot better. Like, they made a lot better T-side reads. Their map pool looks way better than it was before. They don't just win maps because of Simple. So they are a team now. I do agree, though, the problem they have is, like, this is capped out. Like, first of all, you definitely should expect Edward to go down a bit. Yes, Simple could be godlike. Even then, odds are that's surely going to go away eventually. Like, he's not just going to play at this forever. Electronic's very good. I'll say he could stick with that. So the problem I have is, on an off day, I feel like Na'Vi would probably be like the 5th or the 6th best team in the world. And the best case scenario is probably where they are now. And so I don't think this is going to repeat. And so, they can't be number one, put it that way.
Well, I'll tell you, Edward is definitely going to go down, because if you look at the statistics, I got the player chart in front of me on HLTV with the kind of statistics of who played well. We'll segue into talking about Simple for a little bit, but Edward statistically was the equal of Valda and Woxic. Well, that's never happening again. That this simply will not happen again. It's his best performance at a tournament for a long, long time. Meanwhile, of course, Simple, just to put it into context, statistically the best player at the event. I mean, you could guess that, but just how good? Well, over 19 maps, he had a kill differential of 161. So 161 over the top of his deaths. A kill-to-death ratio of 1.53. So 1.5 kills every fucking round.
And they played 19 maps, by the way.
Yeah, so maintaining that insane level of consistency every map, and an HLTV rating of 1.40. Now, to put it in context, again, the second highest kill differential was plus 68. He had 161. That was Sonny from Mouse Sports who had that. The second highest overall player in terms of HLTV rating was Snatchy from AGO. Had a really fucking amazing tournament. Well, but Simple is just like, you saw him in the fucking finals. Like, he was laughing when he was getting kills. He was going for knives. This is at a major final in front of a home crowd. Completely unfazed, unruffled by the occasion. There was even some clip, right, where somebody wanted to give him like a low 5. And he was just looking at his monitor, and he just adjusted his hand perfectly to get it. And was just, like, has Jesus honestly come back and just took control of his fucking body? It's mental. It's a matter of time before Simple is literally fucking going, you want some fucking wine? Give me that bottle, mate. And just fucking, that's it. He's already performed a miracle winning a fucking tournament in Kiev with this team. Yeah. Like, and he's still got so much fucking time left. If he maintains this form for even another 6 months, it's terrifying. There will never have been a player like this in CSGO.
Yes.
It's insane.
Well, I have to say, one thing that triggers me a bit is people always have this logic they love to use in sports and in CS and all esports as well, which is the idea that like all the players are improving over time, and therefore, if you sent so-and-so back 10 years, he'd shit on all the best players back then, blah, 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 that sort of thing. And so what I saw people saying when they were marveling about Simple here was like, how fucking insane. And I saw people piping up. Like, and what's crazy is to think that the next generation will be even better than him. I'm just going to go ahead and say this, right? They won't. Like, here's the thing. The next generation will be really good, and you know what? They'll have a different skill set. None of them will ever be as far ahead of their peers, as simple as right now, or as transcendently good at the game as he is right now. Because what makes it so bonkers is that Simple didn't listen to anyone's advice when it came to his game. Remember when he first joined Na'Vi, and one of the problems was he used to have really good stats in the game, but all the analysts, the people I trust, Yanko, the rest of them, they would all say, the thing about him is, right, he's the player where, yeah, his skills are unbelievable, but he's got to learn things like timing, how to play with your teammates, and he's got to be less aggressive, you know. All these aggressive angles he takes, sure, he makes them sort of work because he's so good, but that's what will cost you, you know. You won't be the best player. Now, I didn't necessarily entirely buy into that, but I definitely thought there was a logic to it. Like, that is the way most players in history had to sort of tune their game. You take some of the rough edges off, you figure out what you can sort of do consistently. Yeah, you have some parts, maybe you try and expand your game, but you kind of got to learn your limits. Like, we use the term, like, you play within your limits, basically. And obviously, if you get to the level of, like, Coldzera, he probably perfected that. Like, he looks like he never makes a mistake, he never takes anything too aggressive. Everything that comes to him is what the game's given him, and he's just killing it. But when you look at Simple, he didn't do any of that shit. If anything, he's still the most aggressive player. He's still the player who takes the most ludicrous pigs. Like, what's funny is I did a podcast the other day where one of the things they asked me about, right, was something that a lot of people have noticed, which is one of the ways Na'Vi improved since the last Star Series, is when they're on CT side, obviously teams have figured out, if you go where Zeus is, that's the easiest kill to get in the game. Yeah. So what Na'Vi does now sometimes is they time when teams are starting to do that, and they just rotate Simple to wherever Zeus plays on the map, and Simple kills everyone that comes there. Now, I made this point to the guys, like, that sounds like genius strategy until you realise that isn't a strategy unless you have Simple. Like, you can't do that with even Kenny S, Coldzera, Nico, because you know what? They'll be less effective when they go to that spot. They don't play that spot. They don't have all the skill set to necessarily know all the angles there, to be, or even the mad confidence to think they could get a fucking kill at a spot they don't even play. That only works when you have this Simple right at this moment. Like, it's not even a viable strategy for anyone else. So that just kind of shows that what's mad is he became the best player ever doing all the shit that you would tell someone not to do. Like, what's mad is he did ride out that play style. It just turned out he's one of those mad examples where it was all of us that were wrong. Actually, you can do all that shit and still win. Because as you're saying with the stats, what's so mind-boggling is Simple should be the player where the eye test tells you, oh, he's the best ever, but the stats is like, oh, he's really good, but you know what? He's up there with the rest of them. He has the best stats, like, in terms of kills, but then his deaths are like fuck all as well. Like, it's not even like being so aggressive, you know, gives something up. Normally, if you're super aggressive, you're going to blow a few rounds. You're going to give up too many easy deaths because, you know, you're not actually feeling it in this game and you're too aggro. Like, everything the guy's doing at the moment actually is just like, it's impossible. It still doesn't make sense to me he can do it at two of these tournaments because, like I say, I think the last one, I think they played 21 or 22 maps and he had these stats. This one they played 19 maps at. When you see the amazing Coldzera stats, which by the way are worse than these, he plays 10 maps at a tournament and does that. And you know, at least 3 of those are going to be a shit team. I don't know how this is even possible. It still doesn't feel possible.
No, it's insane. I honestly think, like, what we're watching right now, it's like you say, it's hard to process it. But I think when we get to like 2019, 2020, and we look back, that's in its totality, that's when just how bonkers it is will sort of become a bit more apparent. We'll talk about NRG for a bit as well. There was a little bit of mirroring, I felt, in their stories, in the sense that what NRG, for me, have always needed, I said it on the show many times, is that if Fugly could step up and deliver and you know, do a bit more than what he's doing, not be that drag factor, NRG will definitely do better at these like international level tournaments. Well, Fugly had a great tournament as well, played very, very well here. And while I agreed with your analysis at the time where you were saying, you know, generally what you find with teams that like massively overperform and make it to like finals when they've already played in their mind their final, they just lack that extra little bit of motivation, and the first kind of hurdle they run up against, they can't clear it. And I kind of felt this was going to be a 2-0. It just felt at this point Na'Vi were destined to lift the trophy, but a Na'Vi NRG final was unthinkable at the start of the tournament.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You know, and NRG didn't even get off to a good start. So to battle back, you know, it's interesting. I think the roster has so much fucking talent on it in terms of where these young players can go. There was some fans of fucking I'm a Pet tweeting at me going, "Are you going to take back what you said on the last episode?" Like what I said on the last episode.
What did you say?
Well, what I said on the last episode was, you know, as a coach, he's coming in at the wrong time because they're just starting to get found out. Right. You know, and they've just had a sort of negative impact, and they've lost Imi, who we all agreed was a big part of their coaching thing. So the premise of that is that in the short time I'm a Pet's been there, he's fixed all of the problems Imi couldn't. And basically, this is all about him. Like, high fives all round. I keep my locker room in check.
I mean, what he has to do with Fugly playing, like, best CS in the last 3 years, I have no fucking clue.
So I even asked, I tweeted back to someone, like, what do I have to take back exactly? No one ever replies. Like, no one can clarify it. But, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I won't judge him on this one. I don't think he was there long enough to really take any credit. I think all credit has to go to the players in this instance, in particular Fugly elevating his level of performance. And you sure, maybe I'm a Pet did play a small part in the short time he was with the team. I'll judge him on the next performance, because here's the problem you've got now as NRG. You've just made it to the final of a major international tournament. You've actually skipped a few steps in what should be a story of a developmental team. You started out with, you know, experimental rosters. You took a few gambles with some young players. Now you go into your first international tournament and you're in a final, and you didn't play terrible, you know. So now it's what you do next. Is this the anomaly? Is this the outlier? Can you build on this? You know, are you actually gaining experience? So I don't know. What do you think's next for NRG? I mean, are we likely to see them in another final, some more deep runs? Do you rate this squad? Because they beat Team Liquid. That's a legit win.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem I have. Is like, if this is your best ever tournament, you still did start the tournament down 0-2 in series and almost at elimination point. Then you look at the good part of the tournament run. Right, you know what? Beating Team Liquid is absolutely very legit right now. They are a very good team. They were a favourite for this tournament, justifiably so. They are an NA team, though, which unfortunately does throw up a different dynamic. Like, I actually feel bad for an RG here. I think it would have been a lot better for them if they'd have gotten to play Mouse Sports, SK. If they'd have beaten those teams, as sad as it is, it would have meant more. Like, the fact that you're playing other NA players, people you know, people you've practiced against, people you've played online a million times, it does make it a little bit less impactful that you did, especially because in that series, Team Liquid gave you've had plenty of fucking chance to win that match. It wasn't that, you know, they were at the peak form and you came in and rocked them. And then beyond that, obviously beating this North is not really that much to write home about. And then when you get to the final, what a shit final. Like, that's actually one of the most embarrassing finals I've ever seen, because even if you get stomped, the other team isn't usually literally laughing and trying to Zeus people. Usually your team isn't literally sort of looking at the ground like, oh, gosh, golly, I wish we were doing better.
Yeah,
like,
you're right. Mentally, they look to be like tune the fuck out, honestly. Like, and that's the thing. After the first map, you're like, listen, guys, let's rally. No, it was the same body language. I definitely agree with that. There was something a little bit like,
it's like you say, though, it's because they skipped steps. Like, you have to understand, in a normal circumstance, what should have happened is, right, you beat Team Liquid, fucking solid. But you know what? In the semi-finals, you play Mouse Sports, they beat you, and you go, you know, maybe next time. And then, you know, to 3 or 4 events, if you actually end up being good, you finally make the final. And this time, you feel like you're ready for it. You know, it's like that whole competitive ladder analogy I always use. We have to move up the rungs, you know. There's very few people are so talented or fortuitous they get to skip from rung 10 to rung 2, you know. It doesn't usually happen, unfortunately. So in this scenario, it definitely was way too much in the final. The series against North, to be honest, was pretty touch and go at times, considering North isn't that great a team. So yeah, I feel like if you weighed up the whole thing, even just at this LAN, I don't think even in the tournament they maintained the felt form that got them past Team Liquid. So fair play to them for getting that run. They overachieved. I do still think it's a flawed lineup in as much as, like, it's just too many players who haven't yet become who they're going to be, and that's for good or for ill, you know. Like, maybe Cirque turns out to be amazing. I mean, he's a very young player, very inexperienced. Maybe Ethan does become the star player NA fans think he can be one day. Problem is, I doubt all 3 of them, Breezy, are going to do it. I also don't know that it's going to happen soon. So it might end up being that, unfortunately for you, you got them at this point in time, and in 2 years they're straight fire, and we all wish you'd had them at this point in time. So yeah, I kind of don't buy it, really, to be honest. I think they seem decent, but I saw so many bad moments even in this tournament, I can't put too much stock in them.
Okay. Well, you talked about North as well there. I thought North, again, considering didn't get off to a great start, didn't look great in their first match against NRG. Sort of, there was some sputtering and stuttering along the way. They lost to NIP as well at this event, which, by the way, I would have bet the fucking farm on that, because I've told you, MSL has many times, MSL has a massive mental block when it comes to playing that particular group of Swedes. He does not believe he can beat Forest and get right. He just doesn't believe it.
What's the joke is he even won the pick banner and got nuke and everything. And
I know. So there was that. But overall, listen, I even had a great message from Val today. Super cool dude, and I consider myself friends with MSL, even though occasionally we wreck him on the broadcast. Actually looking like a much better team. And AZ is, as you said, statistically is kind of the same old AZ, but he had some very impactful rounds in terms of clutches and everything else. Kiebi is really coming back in, and what a fucking tournament Mertz had. Like, this is the big story here, that North have took this gamble on another relatively unknown Danish talent, like someone who was highly rated, but we didn't know what he could do internationally. Well, Mertz was a top 10 player at this event in terms of statistics. Really, really good. Was up there with the kill differentials as well. So always great to see. So what did you think overall of North? I mean, are they back in the mix as an international factor here? I mean, I agree with you. They'll be kicking themselves they didn't make it to the final. It seems like such a flop, really, to sort of lose to NRG. But overall, I was impressed with them. I think they've made great strides from where they were like 3 months ago.
Like, the big concern I have with the North team is that even the positives somewhat suggest this lineup just won't work. Because if you look at what happened, first of all, they had a much better map pool than you'd expect for a team that's not highly ranked. Like, actually, they could go all over the place. They could play them. MSL was even vetoing to punish people. Like, unthinkable things were happening, in that respect. So I have to assume Ave coming in as their coach has changed things up in that sense and won MSL over to the idea he has to change some of the things he does. That's all great. As you say, Mertz had a much better tournament than he's had it during his brief tenure in North. Kirby had some games, although I did still think he was underwhelming. Problem with it is, like, even in the games they won, they never looked like a really good team. And even when it was a map that they'd win by, to be fair, they didn't win many maps by big figures, but even when they would win a map, there would be so many mistakes and so many holes all over the place. And some of those big games that got them to this point in the tournament were the ones that, as you referenced, it would be AZ who'd have 23 kills in a game and fucking all the key rounds. And you think, where's this coming from? Because that's not going to last very long, or at least it's very unlikely. So, yeah, this did kind of feel like fool's gold. I mean, I agree. They should have made the final once they got to play NRG. That should have been all day long. If you're a top team, you play in a squad that, I mean, actually has already beaten you. So if anything, they've done you a fucking favour. Oh, no, you'd beaten them earlier. It's the other way around. You'd think, like, that absolutely should be winnable. You should have all the confidence in the world. They were a bit underwhelming there. So put it this way, they're definitely not the dog shit team they were 2.5 months ago, but I don't really see them getting much better. I think actually that this is probably the best you've seen of them. Like, they seem like an okay team, but unfortunately I feel like they're a team that maybe the core can maintain, but they're probably a move or two away from being good.
Yeah, AGO with a sort of big like X factor at this tournament for me. Already talked about the fall of Virtus Pro, who were 12th to 14th at this event, just ahead of VG, Flash, and Gambit, who had their own fucking catastrophe going on, which included losing to Virtus Pro. But AGO, the best team in Poland now by some fucking distance, obviously. And I just wanted to say, like watching them play, they were actually playing like some pretty exciting, like really cool, like Counter-Strike, the kind of Counter-Strike you want to watch. Definitely, like we knew, like kind of like Grubby and Furlan, we knew these guys were kind of capable, and we're always in that like discussion. Oh, who will one day take over and join Virtus Pro to replace the Legends? Well, the reality is, obviously you wouldn't want to play for Virtus Pro now because you're in a team that's already better than them. But like Snatchy, and I never know how to pronounce it, but T-O-A, or I want to say Tau, but that's obviously not his name.
Apparently it stands for the one and only. Like he actually did go with the fucking Chesney Hawkins. So apparently it's like Tau or some shit, yeah.
Okay, Tuau.
Some shit like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I know both of them had some like real fucking standout moments in the tournament. Your PHR was solid. They looked like a really, really good team. And as I said, Snatchy now, like if Virtus Pro are going to think, right, okay, and we'll carry on the legacy of Theseus's ship and replace yet another part. Snatchy's the hot Polish property coming out of this. Like, this isn't just the first good tournament he had. It was a breakout in terms of how high his level of performance was. Last time we saw AGO out, Snatchy was fucking absolute gangster. Guy is fucking straight fire.
Yeah, unfortunately, just because of all the other weird results in this tournament, AGO actually ended up by the end of it getting forgotten about. And so I actually feel bad for them because, right, obviously objectively NRG had the craziest upset run and, like underdog performance just in terms of they got to the final. Then you've got North making a semi-final, actually managing to, obviously they beat AGO. But I actually feel like AGO was the best of the teams that aren't Na'Vi, Mouse Sports, Team Liquid SK. Basically, they were the real best of the rest. And frankly, I think they just choked in the playoffs. Like when they were in the Swiss system, they were significantly better than all the names I just mentioned. NRG, North, fucking any of them. Godsend, all the ones that Avanga, the ones who actually did stuff out of the other names, they were much better. And they actually, in the Swiss system, legit looked like a team that might be top 4, further than that. In fact, on their side of the bracket, you could have said maybe they could have gone to the final. Obviously, if Team Liquid had made it there, maybe not. But yeah, they looked like so many positives. And I have to say, from the way it played out in the North series, I do feel as though they just had performance anxiety issues in a playoff setting, and knowing that, in fact, actually, you've even got the scenario there where it's like, I'm supposed to win this game, a position you have never been in your career. You're even looking at the bracket, fuck what, NRG's beating Team Liquid, maybe I could get to the, these are the things that, unfortunately, when you're a player that's inexperienced, they do wreck you, and there's not many people just come out of the gate swinging and don't have any problems there. So I think the future's great for this team. I am worried, as you mentioned, the Virtus Pro aspect could ruin whatever player they take, because I think it's a terrible environment to go into. And secondly, unfortunately, the disparity in terms of money means it is so likely that whoever gets an offer takes the offer up. Because I'm with you. Like, I mean, some of the analysts, we were throwing this around. If you actually care about winning in your Virtus Pro, you don't pick up a player from AGO. What you do is you go, right, which 1 or 2 players do I want to keep? Cut everyone else and get the rest of AGO. That would be the logical move. And yes, the Snatchy guy 100% should be in the equation, because this guy looks like straight fire.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, Virtus Pro had another fucking embarrassing loss today. Like, I don't know what they're doing. They're just fucking spinning their wheels. They lost to a team called fucking Paper Planes, mate. I mean, it's bonkers how far they've fallen. And honestly, I mean, fuck it. We all got love for Snacks. We all got love for fucking Bialy. We all remember Mihu's been brilliant since he joined. But at the end of the day, like, even if you just took a straight 5-for-5 swap and got AGO, it's an upgrade, isn't it?
Mate, Snacks is so fucking washed up. Tom Hanks is like, how are you going to play this one, mate? Got a tennis ball around here? No, whatever. No, it was volleyball or whatever. Yeah.
Nice. Straight fire references.
Not bad.
From old school movies. So anyway, the last part I want to talk about with this, SK Gaming, obviously. A lot of contention going on with the organization. It's been reported that, yes, there is a reason why they're not wearing SK Gaming shirts and stuff like this.
They are cunts. Didn't say who, didn't say which party for the cunts are. Spoiler, all of them.
Just let people fill in the fucking gaps, mate. But I gotta say, like, they were better here. Like a few observations, basically, I'll make, and then we'll talk quickly about DreamHack Austin, and then we'll wrap up the show. Few observations that I just want to make is, I said it before, like, Fallen has definitely lost his mojo a little bit. There's like an in-game leader. Obviously, the team sort of doesn't have that kind of confidence in him, which is why they're swapping it around. But he's also lost his mojo a little bit as a player. He was kind of back in fits and starts at this tournament, but honestly, he's still not a player that was the best AWPer in the world and also the best in-game leader in the world at one point. Hasn't looked like that for a while. If you look at the statistics in the sort of over the course of the tournament, he was just kind of in the middle of the pack, you know. Now, the big issue for me has been this insistence on having like different in-game leaders for different maps. It is some of the most retarded bullshit I've ever seen. It's not quite as bad as we'll give Simple the CZ and Zeus and AK. I mean, that's the most monstrously stupid thing that's been done in 2018. But if you go down just a couple of steps, you get to, hey, I got a great idea, guys. Why don't we have a different in-game leader call on every map? It'll work. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that at all. What you need is in-game leaders, as we saw from your Mount Rushmore with Sean Gares. They have styles and approaches, and players cannot be changing what the style and approach is or how they're used, or indeed how a in-game leader conceives of how to use a player. You can't just change that from literally not just map to map. It's in the middle of a series you're expecting to change that. If it was series to series, it would be bad enough. But it's in the middle of a must-win series, right? Well, the in-game leader that thinks of Bolts as a passive hold B by himself defensive player is out of the fucking game, and now I am using you as an entry frag. You can't do that. There's no rhythm to how it works. On top of that as well, every time we saw Coldzera play shit, it's when he's meant to be the IGL. At what point are we going to realise that? Coldzera is many things. Fucking Megamind isn't one of them. And I've said this before. It's like when you watch Shox send his stats to shit because he's got no confidence in the team and thinks, right, well, I can be the in-game leader. I'll do it all. It's depressing. And now Coldzera's fallen into that trap. I don't know if it's egotism, narcissism, or just bad advice from everyone else in the team. Your in-game leader is fallen. He is proven, tried and true. Might be having a bad time right now. Might need some new ideas. But he's got to get back to the fucking drawing board and get the motivation to do it. You're not going to make a fucking in-game leader out of Coldzera at this stage in his career. You're not going to make an in-game leader out of Fur at this stage in his career on one map only. This is stupid. It's like SK Gaming are their own worst enemy a lot of the time. So I know you made some comments about it on the broadcast, so...
Well, yeah, first of all, if you just look at the tournament, right, there's so many empty calories in this placing from SK. Because, right, okay, in the Swiss system, the first game they played was against that team, VG Flash Gaming, which is basically like some of the old Tyloo players and then some other players. And that team, no joke, almost 2-0'd SK. SK ends up winning the series 2-1. They almost got 2-0. They then beat a Vanguard, who, fair play, actually was half decent in this tournament, was giving people good games.
And a Vanguard had just beaten them at that tournament before. Yes. You remember the ES Force tournament where it was run by ES Force, controlled by ES Force, sponsored by ES Force, with two ES Force teams in separate semi-finals, destined to go to the final, and it didn't even work like that because your two ES Force teams were SK Gaming and Virtus Pro, and a Vanguard beat SK Gaming in the final, if I remember rightly.
No, they lost it. It was a close final as far as
sorry, it was close. You're right. They took a map off them, I remember.
So already, we've got nothing in those first two. They then played Team Liquid. Now, this was a fucking great series. It's probably the series of the tournament. It was great play, but first and foremost, Coldzera basically won you this fucking series with a bunch of clutches, otherwise Team Liquid wins it. Then you've got the factor that at the moment for Team Liquid, I know it's going to sound like a joke because NRG did beat them in the playoffs. There aren't that many teams that in terms of actual Counter-Strike can beat Team Liquid right now. And the teams that are going to do it are the teams that are full of the veterans and the players that have an intimidation factor. Astralis, FaZe, SK Gaming. So I actually think SK Gaming against Team Liquid got one of those rare instances, like when an MSL team plays against NIP, or the old Astralis plays against NIP or Virtus Pro, where you can sort of even up the disparity between your two teams by you have the veteran edge and you kind of know we're mustard when it comes down to the fucking 1v1, and vice versa. The other team are all going, fuck, it's Coldzera in a 1v1. How do I win this? So if it took Coldzera doing that to win that series, that tells you right there that you're in for some trouble. Then you go to the playoffs. Again, Coldzera has to be fucking Jesus to win you one map in overtime. If that doesn't happen, Navi just 2-0s this, and it was a piece of piss on the other two maps. It was an actual fucking joke. And again, if anything, just highlighted the difference between Coldzera at Simple and everyone else right now. Because Coldzera was with him neck and neck on one map, was just watching in the stands like the rest of us in the other games. Then you look at this overall performance, no joke, go and look at the maps they won. Nearly all of them are Inferno and Cash. Those are the two maps Fallen calls on. When they go to Mirage, when they go to Overpass, where it's Coldzera, he plays like absolute dog shit, and then he calls a terrible T-side. So I'm with you. It doesn't make any sense to make him the in-game leader. Definitely doesn't. It's even more criminal to make him in-game lead half the time, because if anything, I think he'd hit rock bottom and realise it didn't work if he called all the maps, and he'd stop it after a tournament, whereas I think they're deluded enough to think this is working somehow, and this is some sort of viable strategy to do. And then finally, you got to add in, I feel like just because he talks shit, people are going too hard on Stewie 2K. Like, he ain't the reason this team's bad. And it wasn't a terrible gamble. I didn't think it would work, but they were at rock bottom, you know. They had no one left to get. They were going to be fucking calling Harvey, like, can you leave the house today, Harvey? You know, and so we're all seeing how that works out. I mean, not today. Like, you know, back in the fucking attic with all the fish heads that he has to finish eating, because obviously that's the position he plays in the Brazilian team. So anyway, the point I was getting to is this. Stewie 2K sometimes has pretty good games in SK. He's actually one of the better players in the team right now.
No, he's up and down. When he has a good game, it's great. When he has a bad game, it's bad.
But the problem I have is he looks like he is disconnected from the rest of the team, unfortunately. And so his level of play doesn't really seem to inform whether they win or lose the game. Like you said, basically they have a chance to win if Coldzera plays like old Coldzera, and even he can't do that because half the time he's a shit in-game leader. So I didn't really take a whole lot from this SK performance. And I think the fact that, unfortunately for them, since Team Liquid did then go on and lose to NRG, even the big win over Team Liquid suddenly doesn't seem quite as crazy as it was at the time, because you hoped, fuck, they're back, they're going to do it, and they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, look, all you have to do, again, like all the people who are like banging on Stewie, definitely not the problem here. In fact, statistically, him, Fallen, and Fur had pretty much identical stats. Like, you know, Stewie had the worst. Stewie had a slightly better kill differential than Fur. Fur had a slightly better rating. You know, it was negligible. You never heard anyone bang on about how bad Fur is. No. You'll never hear that because it's patently not true. So the people who are like really going on Stewie right now, like Stewie, Fallen, and Fur were all pretty much of a muchness. It was Bolts and then Coldzera up here, and it's like you say. I just hope when all this MIBR bullshit fucking settles, people wipe the tears of forced nostalgia from their eyes. Like, this is the shot in the arm they need, right? You've new brand, new management infrastructure. You're out from SK Gaming, where obviously the relationship's fractures. You know, I know Fallen. Like, he's a flawed character. A lot of people will never have anything bad said about him. You know, like, you don't have to be a saint, right? Like, people treat him that way. But honestly, one of the best in-game leaders in CSGO, no doubt. Sure. And when he's motivated the right way, he will put together a team that will win tournaments. He's done it time and time again. I believe he'll do it with MIBR. But, like, it's on him for me. Because they've got the talent on the roster. Right now, the problem is he can get away with not being a good AWPer and being an amazing in-game leader, which he can do. Or he could be an amazing AWPer and maybe a subpar in-game leader. He cannot be subpar at both of the things he has previously excelled at, perhaps better than anyone else. And as long as he languishes, the team will languish. He is the talismanic player on this roster. He's the one who's got to step it up for me. I think he will, but if he doesn't, like, I don't know, like it's almost like it's his legacy he tarnishes, because this will be MIBR will be the first miss.
Yes.
So it's something to think about. Anyway, just one other quick point about DreamHack Austin, which was the kind of smaller event that was on at the same time at Star Series. Did you get to see any of it?
No.
You would just sleep in and...
Well, here's the thing. Like, sometimes, I mean, I've told people this before, especially if it's a tournament I don't watch live. I usually go back and watch VODs. Yeah. I didn't feel the need to watch the VODs of a tournament where the mighty space soldiers barely beat Hiko, Cadian, and fucking other people. Like, you're like, in 2018, you say, to shreds, you say, you know. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, well, I watched the mods. The big story for me, I mean, like, apart from Rogue being second, which I think was a shock based on the fact that Heroic were there, Complexity, the new Complexity were there. Yeah, OpTic. That's where I'm going with this. This is what I wanted to talk about. Space Soldiers winning it and beating Rogue in the final was probably a bit of a weird one, but I did get the impression just in general from some of the players. I mean, the Complexity guys especially, because obviously Texas is kind of where Complexity's based because of that relationship they have with the Dallas Cowboys and stuff now. I did kind of feel this was more like a fucking meet and greet and they hadn't really put a lot of prep in. They certainly didn't look like it. It kind of felt like a bit of a fucking, like, just let's have a laugh kind of tournament. Like you saw with, like, the Summit, for example, or that one in Mykonos. It had that same kind of vibe to it. That even the things that people were tweeting. Like, did you see that fucking straight fire tweet from fucking Config? Where he had fucking Shazam.
It's good, isn't it?
Shazam and Stanislaw in a headlock, like... You gotta love that fucking kid. People banging on fucking Config. It's ridiculous. That's the right level you want to be at. Yes. That's the level of banter you want to be at. For future reference, Configs, I know you watch the show. That level of banter, good. Going absolutely wild and fucking threatening to meet people down dark alleys, bad. Don't do that.
Did you see though, Rich? I've just realised I have to bring this up now. Did you see that they found Config on live stream fail and he was on Ice Poseidon's stream?
Oh, God.
So Ice Poseidon was at some sort of, I think it was some sort of festival or something. Right. And Config just walks up and someone says something like, hey, this guy's like a CS player or something. And then he's talking to Ice Poseidon, only for like a few seconds. You'll find this on Reddit somewhere. Sure. And basically... And obviously, Ice Poseidon's like live streaming at the time, And then Config just like, you can tell he's like a little bit drunk because initially he's just saying like, yeah, I'm a CS player or whatever, And then out of nowhere, he just goes, the guy says something like, a friend of Ice Poseidon says something like, give me like 3 weeks or 3 months or something and I'd be as good as you. Some mad, ridiculous line like that. And Config just goes, hey, bro, I was top 14 in the world last year. And just goes like really aggressive for no reason, just like that. And also makes a mad cringy reference to the fucking HL3 and all rankings. Like I said this to Henry at the time. Like there's a classic episode of Seinfeld, right, where one of the problems is Jerry buys his dad a T-shirt that says #1 dad, and then in the episode he meets this family of people who are like overly competitive based around their dads and hero worship, and one of them goes, "You think you're the #1 dad?" And Seinfeld just goes, "I don't really know how official a lot of these rankings are, Like that's how I felt in this moment where Config's like bigging up the fact he's at the 14th best player or something. It's like, come on, mate.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say this. He hasn't got to the stage in his development yet where he can hold his liquor, because like it is mad. You see the same players at the same events and you're like, wait, you were arsehole drunk at the last event and trying to start a fight. Let's see now that you're out. Oh, no, you're trying to start a fight again, right? Okay, so haven't quite mastered the alcohol intake thing yet. Like, I don't know how many years it takes of sort of heavy drinking to be able to sit there, drink, have a laugh, have some fun, and just go to bed without having any problems. Maybe he's got another year or two of drinking he needs to get under his belt. But obviously, yeah, he's a bit of a wildcat when he's got a drink inside him. But let's talk about his team. Let's talk about OpTic, because he's a fucking great CS player. Top 14 in the world, I'm told. But OpTic fucking shit the bed here. This should have been a slam dunk.
They should have won the tournament.
Yeah, this should have been a fucking slam dunk. What the fuck went wrong, man? Like, again, I watched them play. It was just inexplicably sloppy. Like, really weird. Like, keep in mind, I thought when they put this team together, I know you did, this was like, wow, this is something to fucking watch. You go into a tier 2, arguably tier 3 tournament where, Rogue can make it to a fucking final. But by the way, great to have Spencer back. He played pretty well, really disappointed in OpTic when you look at the attendance, the games they played, the results. I mean, it's just madness. The group they were in was Complexity, Space Soldiers, and Rogue. Well, OpTic should be beating them, any team they were drawn against there, it should be an OpTic win. Now, I will also say this. Obviously, at that stage, it was best of ones, and they did get the series win over Complexity, but then they lost the series, which was the vital one, Space Soldiers, the best of 3. And some of these maps, like, it was pretty decisively one-sided towards Space Soldiers. And in particular, I don't know, it was just sort of like they haven't found their tactical identity yet. It was kind of like watching an earlier iteration of North, actually. That, you know, they were like trying to cruise by on talent a little bit. And you could see that people were making real sloppy mistakes. But I don't know. But bounce back, or is this a bad omen?
Well, the big problem the lineup has is, like, first of all, you look at the names and you're like, God damn, this should be a pretty good team. But the big question mark, obviously, is the player Gade, who's the newcomer. Unlike all the others who are all proven players, they've all been parts of good to very good teams. He's the one who's obviously a question mark, and especially in as much as if you look at all the other names, you probably want him to be more of a facilitating player. You don't really want him to be a star player because you've got those in spades. You've got Yugi and Config to be your star players. You've got very capable veteran in KGB. Snappy's your in-game leader and known to be not exactly a big fragger. So that is the one area I'll say already I have my qualms about. Because if you want to have this big tactical team, they are missing that player who could play sort of like a stable, supportive type role. So that's problematic in itself. And then secondly, the other factor is, like, when they made this lineup, for me, the real storyline of this lineup is going to be, did people overrate Snappy? Because, yes, he fulfilled the first part of your career as an in-game leader. You can't get the best talent, so you develop a few talents, you work with whatever you've got, you get the best out of them, you get to a decent level, and then what happens is you get your shot when someone else isn't a good enough in-game leader, and finally you get to a better team. His problem is he is now facing the same crucible that MSL faced when he had Cajun and Magus playing really well. And suddenly, it's not like, right, make the best out of a bad team. It's like, you've got a good team now, mate. Time to win. And obviously, MSL had a brief period of success, but then ultimately failed at that point. You know, ultimately, it was too many quarterfinals eliminations and upsets. So for me, Snappy, we've yet to see what happens when you give him this level of talent. And thus far, hasn't been a great start, quite frankly. There's been flashes of looking pretty good, but when you consider he's also hailed as a tactical in-game leader, based on what was said in that Stanislaw tweet longer, apparently Config and Cajun wanted a tactical in-game leader. So there's a lot of good signs here, but it just isn't coming together at the moment, because this is a team that should be a lot better when you look at the names.
Yeah, they'll be sending the Indian roster to fucking events if they keep this up. So,
man alive, how cynical is fucking Hex? It's all fucking me.
No, it's a fucking smart move. I'm down with that.
No, but here's the thing. It is, in as much as, like, right, there's a small pond there with a vaguely decent-sized stickle back in it. Well, there's the big fish. But, like, don't ever pretend like he's going to develop the Indian region. That team's going to go to big tournaments. They're ever going to do anything beyond, say, look like a bunch of Indian people bought some OpTic jerseys. Like, come on.
I don't know. I think you'll see them go to an event. The problem
get their shit pushed in, and then they'll be going, where the fuck are the Tudor crisps at?
Fuck, you know, I thought we were going to get through an episode.
That's reasonable as fuck. You're the one who brought that up in the first place.
Yeah, I'm talking about crisps. You fucking idiot. I think the problem you've got is obviously with the ownership rules that are coming in and being adopted by more and more tournament organizers. You can't obviously send OpTic.India and OpTic.Denmark to the same tournament because conflict of interest. But I know enough about OpTic to say I'm pretty confident they will get sent to an international tournament. I think we'll see them out there for sure. So I think it's slightly less cynical than you. But we'll find out, I guess. The proof of the pudding is always in the eating. So anyway, there you go. We got one question from one of our 100. Oh, no, two questions now. A new one's popped up from our $100 donator. So Detlef Insomniac just asks, we paid $100 for this joke. Why you hate CIS minor, man? So there you go.
Because obviously,
yeah.
He said under it is a meme.
Yeah, we know Detlef. He's good people.
It's a sad state of affairs that you have to say these things now, and
I know.
Like it's but harmless.
Yeah, because obviously people have said that to you. And listen, if people might have blinked and they missed it, but you did give credit to a Vanguard this episode. So
yes,
personal growth. Personal growth.
Oh, you'd love the switch. The mad thing is, it's not even just randoms who say these things. I did an interview. I don't know if it came out because I haven't checked it beyond some Russian website, I think. I did an interview with a guy who was some CIS journalist when I was at Star Series. Like, he literally requested it through the tournament. And to be fair, usually I'll do them, as long as it's not someone who's been like an arsehole to me or something. And when I did the interview, his opening question was like, something along the gist of it was basically sort of like, a lot of people don't think you are the esports historian. Respond. It's like, what the fuck? First of all, what sort of damn is that? I know.
Resume, go.
Dick, respond.
And here's the thing, Rich. I tried to play it off like, haha, a little bit of charisma will go a long way here. Well, we all have our own opinions, and it's fine for fans to think that, it's not really an official title, is it? But I think, I've done a lot in my career. And he interrupted me and he goes, no, a lot of people are saying it though. I was like, there's the camera. What the fuck?
I'm being fucking punked.
That's real.
Why is this? At that point, I really I thought about just fucking leaving, but I stuck in there like a champ.
Good man. That's what you're all about. So Hyolu, one of our $100 patrons, wants to know, with Exist replacing Lecro, it's clearly to take over the IGL role from Golden.
She said it in the post that he's doing that, yeah.
Yeah.
They said that they're moving Golden to entry fragger, which is like saying, we're not going to kick this guy out, but we're going to do everything to fuck his life up.
Oh, legit, right? Like, I will just say this a little bit. It's always hard to kind of talk about it because obviously I like the players on the. I mean, I like. There's not many players I don't like, but I sit here and just fucking torch them all day. I hope you understand. It's all in the fucking game, like Omar says, right? But Exist taking over from Golden as an in-game leader is fucking so dumb. Remember that hierarchy I was talking about with the CZs and the AKs and the separate in-game leaders? It's worse than having separate in-game leaders on the maps. You're taking a successful in-game leader that has won you tournaments, rejuvenated the team, got the best out of players who were languishing for a long period of time. And I'll tell you exactly why they're doing this. Because if you remember, when he was already out, this was kind of the move that was getting floated before. Yes. And then now he was brought back. You're right. They're just deliberately setting him up to fail. For whatever reason, they've got a personal issue with Golden. And this is exactly how you set someone up to fail, isn't it?
Oh, it's criminal.
You take away their primary role. You give it to someone who, by the way, as an in-game leader, as I would argue, Golden's achievements are fucking more relevant, honestly, than anything Exist has done as an IGL for certainly for a long time. And then not only that, entry fragger. First of all, it's one of the most up and down fucking roles in the fucking game. It's the hit or miss. It's like whenever you see a player going, fucking hell, they've had a bad run of events. Oh, do they play entry fragging? Yeah, they do. Because it's literally a large part of the role, especially on the T side, when you're being that aggressive person, is you've got to guess where somebody is. You've got, it's guesswork and hopefully accuracy. And generally, you're set up to die for the next person to get the trade. Even that is in itself an efficient art. So it doesn't lend itself to statistics. Now, obviously, once again, we know Golden's history. Golden fucking used to AWP, I think, at one point or something. Then he became an in-game leader. Entry fragger, man. It's like literally you're in the trenches. First, fucker. You first.
Exactly.
Over the top. I've got the whistle. Woo, woo, woo. And it's just like, that's it.
My analogy would be this. I'll go biblical. So there's this great story in the Bible, right? There's a story in the Bible, which, by the way, in a sense, completely invalidates all the philosophy of the Bible and the premise that God was involved in it in any way. Because in the Israelite kingdom, right? You had that classic king, King David, the one who, you remember, he beat Goliath when he was a kid, and he became the king over that salty Saul bitch who was just trying to keep running game, but he,
I'd love to get your take on the Bible. I'd love to get your take on the Bible.
This David guy, he's the big swinging dick now. He's the king, and what happens is he looks out one day across sort of like from his castle or whatever, and he sees this SmithZz, right? And he sees them tits flopping around. He goes, King David wants to have a little nip. So anyway, this is what a little cunty is. Because he finds out she's married and that, and he can't just make her his wife, he literally arranges the guy to be killed by having the next battle they have. He basically tells like the sort of leaders of the army, like, make this guy go out, and when he goes out, you just step back, and he just gets killed. And that's literally what happens. And that's how the King David guy gets the Bathsheba woman. And so I actually think this is what I speculated when I did my video on the topic. I legitimately think that this is what they've done, where because it would be such bad press to do the move you already went back on before and one that's somewhat inexplicable, they're just doing it in stages. So they go, right, we've got Exist through the door. Point one solved. How do we get rid of Golden now? Put him in the worst possible role. Let him fucking get wrecked, because it's also the worst role for stats, like you say. And after the fact, whoever you recruit instead of him will, in the relative context, seem like an upgrade. And at the end, it'll be one of those things where you'll be like, so how did Golden end up winning that team? And then, all right. And it'll be like the circuitous route.
Yeah, honestly, here's what's going to happen in like 3 months. The community are going to forget the fact that he was usurped as a successful in-game leader, made to go entry fragger, has shit statistics. They'll all be going, fucking hell, Golden's terrible, isn't he? He's terrible compared to all these other more popular players with fan bases that have absolutely fucking stuck the knife in his back 2,000 times. Kick Golden. And then, obviously, all the Swedes on that team are like, we never liked that cunt. Let's get one of our old mates in.
Because let's face it, here's the thing. Even if I could buy that, I don't know why, but I could buy that the players in Fnatic believe Exist could be a good in-game leader. But I do not buy that they simultaneously think that they'll also win with the Golden as entry fragger and Exist as in-game leader. No way. Sure. So this is absolutely, you just take care of business and you move on to whoever the fuck you next, isn't it?
And just to go mega prescient on my predictions, it'll be just in time when Olaf Meister's coming back and Olaf will rejoin Fnatic. You know what?
Here's the thing, Rich. Either this Draken guy could end up playing for him, or, as you've said, Olaf Meister, for whatever reason, decides he doesn't want to play in FaZe anymore. But you know what? Oh, what's that? My old team's got a good set of players together and obviously would absolutely welcome me back. It would just make sense on all grounds, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so just put that out there. Another one of my mad predictions that'll probably come true because I'm a G like that. Right, anyway, let's fucking wrap up the show. Let's bounce. So here we go. The show is made possible by the people who donate money, because me and Thorin have hit the stage in our careers. Well, you're talking about cynical motherfuckers. Here we are doing a podcast. The shit we used to do for free, now we charge you for it. But fuck it, we got to eat too. Thanks to our patrons that donate. Our $100 patrons, of course, Detlef Insomniac, Chris N. Wynn, Eric Boutros, TTM XMP, Hyolu, Mateusz Pietkowski, Ruxen, and, of course, Jerky's Minion. Our $50 patrons, the Archangel Varao, Sard Sawar, Daniel Plamanov-Yodnov, Pete Bidstrup, TC Owens, Vexy, Nostradamus, Marcus Kyunpar, Madsen, Ollie Ginther Zillan, Colin Penny, Mama Jama Hennessy, Benakagi Assassin, and William Southern. So there you have it. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll be back probably at slightly earlier next week. We're going to try and get back to the Tuesday routine. Obviously, with Duncan's travel and Sam being in Amsterdam, things have been a little bit messed up, but obviously stay glued to our Twitter. We will keep you informed. That was By the Numbers. We'll see you on the next episode. Until then, take care of yourselves.